and gentlemen, let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
The Zone is presented by Guaranteed Foods, delivering all natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
I'm in a Wednesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Dylan Michaels. We had up until 2 o'clock. We've got you the next 4 hours. Lots of stuff to get into and talk about today. College basketball on the docket with KU, K-State, and Mizzou all in action last night. One of those three teams left their particular game happy, excited, pumped, enthused. And the other two left as Wildcats and Tigers last night. We will talk some college basketball today. We will talk some NFL football today. We'll talk some Major League Baseball today as well. Here's how the show lines up. Matt Tate will be our guest at 11 o'clock, R1S1 Sports and the Perpetual Sports Network, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. We'll talk with him about the KU Jayhawks and their win last night, what it means maybe moving forward with how they played, defensively what they looked like. Nick Timberlake bringing the sexy three back. I don't know if that's true. I'm not sure. But Matt Tate, we'll talk with him coming up at 11 o'clock about those things. And handshake lines. Handshake lines. Yes, all right. Thank God we got Mick Schaefer today at 1 o'clock. Don't worry, everybody. We got Mick Schaefer, 1 o'clock, KSHB 41 Sports Director, presented by Empower Payments. Great thing about that is we can really get down to the nitty-gritty and the nuts and bolts of handshake lines. Oh, yeah. Been waiting for the next opportunity to have an argument with Mick about handshake lines, baby. Let's get into it. Sportsmanship, your thoughts. If somebody does not shake hands, are they a good sport? Will the entire fabric of the American culture slowly peel away if we do not shake hands after games? We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up at 1 o'clock. And also today, last but certainly not least of the three that I'm mentioning, but right in the middle there, Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, will be our guest coming up at noon. We'll talk some Royals baseball with Les Norman today. Yeah, that's right. Your Cactus League leading Royals at 9-3. We all know there's a direct translation from winning in the Cactus League to winning in the regular season. Everybody knows this. It's been talked about. Many great studies have been done that show a direct correlation causation for winning in the regular season. And so the Royals are just starting their American League Central winning path right now. All jokes aside, they're, winning some games, whatever. But Les Norman, we'll talk with him about things that he might be seeing, things he's hoping for, expecting, excited about. We'll do that with Les Norman coming up at noon. 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show. 913-912-4810, the text line to be a part of the show. You guys weighing in on different parts of the show and your conversation. Do want to give a big shout out to Google Fiber, award-winning internet without data caps, annual contracts, or hidden fees. Internet proud to be from Kansas City. Now available up to 5 gigs. 1 gig internet, still the same price since 2012. Enough unlimited internet for everyone in your home and all their devices. And when you've cut the cord and you've got multiple games going on like last night, you may have the DraftKings app open while you're watching some games. You may be a Nick Honor free throw away from cashing a decent parlay. Total aside.
The worst. Just the worst. That's why I don't bet basketball is one of the worst.
It's funny because last night is one of those things where I would go, this is why I don't bet college basketball. Because Nick Honor, because I had Mizzou over 74.5 total points in the game because I figured it would be an up-down game. Auburn's going to score in the 90s, maybe 100. And Missouri's going to score a lot, especially late when it's just going to be an up-and-down game, and Auburn isn't going to be as competitive. And Missouri's going to do their late scoring surge. And I had him over 74.5 points. Nick Honor breaks his 34 consecutive free throw streak. 34 straight free throws. And they hit at 74.
I would love to be the casino one time, just watching and have joy for these moments.
I mean,
that'd
just like
that'd be fun.
Unbelievable. 74 and a half, and he's at 34 straight free throws.
Like you sit on your couch sweating, your heart's racing. They're just enjoying their time when that happens.
I was not sweating it at all.
You saw it coming the whole way.
No, not at all. I was confident. I was totally confident because they were scoring. Auburn was scoring. It was like, I had the over of like, 150 something. I can't remember what it was. I'm like, that's fine. That's going to hit because, Missouri's going to get to 60 and Auburn's going to get to 90. So it's going to be fine. I wasn't sweating that, and I didn't need to because they blew past that. But it was a 74.5. I'm like, they've got 60 with 8 minutes to go. They're fine. They're going to do their scoring thing. They're going to end up with like 80. I'm not even worried about that. And then they started missing and started missing and started missing.
See, there's always a moment in the game where I see something happen, and it could be middle of the game, and maybe one of those missed shots, and I would have been like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. I'm going to have my heart ripped out.
Well, when he missed the free throw, I'm like, okay. Because Missouri got a bucket with 25 seconds left or whatever. I'm like, well, shot clock's essentially off. There was 1 second differential, I think it ended up being. So Missouri threw a half-court shot up there with 74 points. But regardless, that's a total aside. Total aside. But thank you to Google Fiber, I was able to do some of those things and have some fun in real time. Fun for some people, maybe not for others. It was still a fine day yesterday. Let me just say that. So 913-912-4810 text says right out of the gate, standard should be hockey. Handshake lines with all-out brawls. That's right. Well, we saw that earlier this year with a brawl breaking out in college basketball. So we've seen those things. We'll get into some of that with that. Text says, nobody cares. Let's talk fantasy football. Yeah, that's right. Text says, this country has gone to hell. Handshake lines? Uh-oh. Now we can't even shake hands. I mean, once you lose the handshake line, you've lost the plot. There are issues with that. There's one thing I've said about this country and the downfall. It's the downfall of handshake lines.
Yeah, nothing more respectful than the winning team smiling and shaking your hand as they walk through a line. That's always what we need.
Well, I'll bring this up with Mick because this is sort of my go-to when Mick and I have these conversations about it, and we've had them in the past. It's really tough for me to get behind people saying handshake lines teach the kids about sportsmanship when the previous hour and a half you're screaming, it's a terrible call, Blue! Where are you at? He's safe. You suck, Blue. That is an awful... What are we doing here? Call it both ways. Oh, I'm pretty sure they got that. What? Are you just what? You got a great view of the game. Why didn't you shake their hands? Hey, son, be a good sport. Why are you not shaking their hands? I want to teach you about sportsmanship, son. Text says it's blamed on the Facebook crash of 2024. The whole fabric is just coming apart at the seams. All right, let's get into the show. 913-912-4810 is the text line. KU dominant last night in their win over K-State, 90-68. I had mentioned the principal bet, right? I didn't know if I was going to touch the game, but I'm like, you know what? Let's have a little fun. I'll bet it on. I typically don't bet local games except for total points because I don't want to be rooting one way or another. But I'm like, you know what? Just for, interest's sake, sort of one of those, principal bets that I talked about yesterday. I'm like, this line I feel like should be closer. Stupid. I'm like, all right, well, KU is begging you to put money on K-State, so I'll put money on KU. And they ended up covering. And the game last night to me was about KU. It was about what they did. It was about the defense they played. And it's about KU, but I want to play a clip from Jerome Tang to start with. And I think this is, while Jerome Tang is upset at his players' effort and how hard they played, I think a portion of this clip also shows to me why it was about what KU did last night, and moving forward, the story being about the Jayhawks, and certainly we know what the path is now for K-State. I think that's pretty clear of winning Saturday and then winning in Kansas City, every of the games in Kansas City. I think that's probably the path now because they are 0-2 in these quad one opportunities last two games. But here's Jerome Tang, his opening statement after last night's loss to KU.
Man, they kicked our butts. We didn't deserve the win. Didn't give an effort good enough to deserve the win. Disappointed in that. because staff did an unbelievable job of putting together what I thought was a game plan that would give us a chance. But when the other team runs faster than you and on every possession and cuts harder than you on every possession and has a little bit more fight and want to than you do, these are the kind of results you have. At our place, we were able to take Timberlake and Furphy out the game. Here tonight, they had 26 combined. That was huge. At our place, we had a couple guys who were able to, get it going, TP and Cam. And here, they did a great job of taking them out the game. And man, that's like with what Timberlake and Furphy did and what TP and Cam, weren't able to do. That's a 50-point swing. So results are what they are.
Jerome, why do you think this was a tough game for Tyler?
The defense, they did at our place, I don't think the attention to TP was as focused as it was this game. They every time they made it hard for him to touch the ball. Every time he did have it, they put 2 on the ball. They made a concerted effort to make sure that he would not be the difference in winning and losing tonight.
Would defense be the number one thing that you say kind of held y'all back tonight?
Well, yeah, in the second half when they shoot 50% and 56 from 3, you'd say, we didn't really guard, the way we're capable of. It wasn't it was the effort. The effort is the thing that held us back tonight.
So, look, I will say there's a lot of times when Jerome Tang will look at himself, look inside, look at his coaching staff, and there aren't many times where Jerome Tang will look at the players and say, hey, game plan, everything that we had ready to go, we felt pretty good about. And I want to credit the assistant coaches for the game plan they put together and all the scouts and everything. But the players didn't play hard. Those guys were running faster than we were. They were running harder than we were. They were coming off screens harder than we were. They were going after the ball harder than we were. There was more effort there than we had, which I would guess for Jerome Tang feels like a slap in the face when he said Saturday was an NCAA tournament game against Cincinnati, and they played hard. They ended up losing. And this was going to be a Sweet 16 type game. And him feeling like they came out with that particular effort. That's fine. The effort could be part of it. I don't think effort was missing early in the game. And this is why I think it's about KU. I don't think effort was missing early in the game from K-State. I think they were busting their butt. I think they were getting in transition. They were getting back in transition. They were defending. They were trying to attack to the lane. But what happened was KU and Bill Self and the defense that they play was suffocating, and it sort of took the will from K-State. There's a 5-minute stretch to where I think was a foreshadow for the entire game. And I noted it while the game was going on. And I went back this morning and rewatched that a little bit and took more accurate notes, knowing what ultimately was going to happen. Now that we know that Tyler Perry went 0 for 6 from the floor, did not make a field goal in the game, ended up with just 2 free throws and 2 points. Now that we know that Arthur Kaluma was 3 of 11 from the floor, 1 of 5 from the three-point line, had 10 total points. We know that Cam Carter was 1 of 7 from the floor, 1 of 4 from three-point line, and 3 points. That those guys combined for 15 points. That Nick Timberlake, by himself, outscored Perry, Kaluma, and Carter combined. He had 18. Those guys had 15. You are dead in the water if that's happened. This was one of those to where it's like, man, if you would have told me the box score was this, I would have told you that this other team won. But hey, look how crazy it is. If you showed me that box score, I'd say they're toast. They lose by 20. And they ended up losing by, 22 points in the game. They doubled what was the spread from Vegas. The foreshadowing to me of where I understand why Jerome Tang would feel like the effort may not be there, because second half when KU shooting 50% from the floor, 50% from 3, they're getting offensive rebounds, they're getting out in transition. It looks like there's a lack of effort there from K-State. They didn't start the game like that. They were up 7-3. And here's the stretch of basketball that I think took the will from K-State and sort of foreshadowed the rest of the game. Up 7-3. Kaluma misses a free throw. Cam Carter then misses a three. In rhythm, early in the shot clock, but in rhythm. Coming around a screen, gets the ball on the wing, takes the shot, rhythm, misses it. Kaluma then drives to the bucket. Contact, but I thought it was good defense. 6-footer, rolls around the rim and out. That's unfortunate, right? It's unlucky. They come back down the next possession. Cam Carter misses a shot in the lane early in the shot clock. It's like 20 seconds on the shot clock. He drives to the lane. Furphy, phenomenal defense, and Carter thinks he's going to be able to turn the corner. He doesn't. He jumps up, and that's when he sort of threw the ball with his left hand hard off the backboard. It was still like 20 seconds on the shot clock. That's early. KU gets out in transition. Kaluma comes down, hits a three. Boom. All right. Nice. Next time down, Tyler Perry. Wide open in the corner. Misses the three. And it wasn't particularly close. It was hard off the back iron. It wasn't like in and out or, just barely. It was hard off the back iron. All right, that happens. He's gonna find his touch. They come down the next possession. And KU just playing phenomenal defense. Hedging, double team, going over the screen and hedging with Tyler Perry, daring them to say, okay, beat us on the inside off the screen. We don't think you're going to do that. And they weren't doing it in the game. And McNair gets the ball late in the shot clock, loses the handle, picks up the ball on the baseline, like 20-footer, and misses the shot. All right, there's a desperation heave at the end of the shot clock. Ames comes down in transition. Again, early in the shot clock, transition, wild shot attempt blocked by Hunter Dickinson. Hunter Dickinson misses a shot, or KJ Adams misses a shot. McNair gets the rebound, throws the outlet pass, bad outlet pass. Hunter Dickinson steals it. Goes to the layup, misses the layup, offensive rebound, put back. Timeout by K-State. Out of the timeout. They can't get anything going offensively. The KU defense was in the face of Tyler Perry, in the face of Ames. They swing it around. Kaluma has the ball from NBA range on the wing. 15 seconds still on the shot clock. And decides to chuck it up. Misses it hard off the front rim. Bounces all the way out to the three-point line. DeJuan Harris gets the ball. Fast break layup. Jimmy Dykes, I don't like some of his little sayings or whatever, like guard your yard, drive the nail. But one of his sayings is the bad shot bone is connected to the fast break bone. We get what he's saying. Bad shots lead to runouts. And that was an NBA three early in the shot clock that was missed so poorly that it was an initial outlet pass, is really what it was, and KU got out and ran. In that 5-minute stretch, now they're down 17-12. They were up 7-3. In that 5-minute stretch, they go 1 of 8 from the floor, 1 of 4 from the three-point line, and 0 for 1 from the free throw line. Kaluma, Perry, and Carter themselves 1 of 6 from the floor, 1 of 4 from three-point land. They had the right guys taking the shots. This wasn't McNair's throwing up hook shots and Ames is doing Colbert's doing this or that. No, it wasn't that. Gasson is taking an NBA three for no reason. There were some forced shots, yes. But it was Kaluma, Perry, and Carter that were the ones taking the shots. And they were some bad shots, and some weren't even close to going in. And that's when KU turned up the defense. And to me, that was a foreshadow of what the rest of the game was going to be. In that K-State didn't have enough that night to beat what the defense was going to be for KU. Because their focus was going to be, we are not going to let Tyler Perry beat us tonight. We are going to come over the top. We're going to hedge hard. And if they dump it down to McNair or Corbett or Gasson, and that guy, they combine for 30, 35 points or whatever, then you know what? Tip your cap, win the game. But he will not have 26 points like he did the first go-around. He will not go crazy on us. Those three, Perry, Kaluma, and Carter, will not score 58 points like they did the first go-around. 58 of the 75 were by those three. That was the focus. That's what KU has to do moving forward. It's why we talked about, what my thought process was in Bill Self saying he was less discouraged after the loss to Baylor. Is that he didn't feel like the defensive performance was as good in the second half as it was in the first half. But offensively, when they got 40 points combined from Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough, and you got 9 assists from DeJuan Harris, that's sort of who you're playing through. That's sort of how your offense is going to go. But your defense is expected to be better. And it will be better because that's what they can hang their hat on. It's what Bill Self's teams have always been able to hang their hat on. And they come back the next game, and they play that type of defense in the first half, in stretches there. I think that's why the effort ended up being lost, is I think once you're seeing that, how difficult it's going to be in that environment and shots not going, now maybe you should say mentally tough, you should be able to work hard. And I think the will was taken out of K-State by KU, and that's what they can do in the tournament if they're going to make a long run. I don't know if this is now an opportunity to or a look at Nick Timberlake and say that hey, look what he did. Maybe he can build off of this, right? Maybe he can have a big game off of this. We haven't seen him put back-to-back games together really this year. We'll see if he can do that now moving forward with a big one down in Houston to see if KU can finish in the top 4 of the Big 12. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. We may talk a little handshake line. I don't know. We may talk some K-State a little bit more. Just look, I think they ran into a buzzsaw on senior night, and there were a lot of teams in the country that were going to lose last night in Allen Fieldhouse. And I think we know the path in front of K-State now. Beat Iowa State. Really, honestly, it doesn't even matter on Saturday. To a degree. Like, beat Iowa State, win the Big 12 tournament, lose to Iowa State, win the Big 12 tournament. I think it's going to be the same for K-State in getting to the NCAA tournament. I think winning on Saturday night here in Kansas City a week from Saturday is how K-State goes dancing with these last couple of games. We'll find out, though, how they end up playing. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. More Zone next. until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Matt Tate coming up at 11 o'clock. Les Norman will be our guest coming up at noon, breaking the norm. And 1 o'clock, Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports Director, presented by Empower Payments, will be our guest. You know what? Let's hear from Bill Self on the handshake or, I don't know, lack thereof, or not strong enough, firm enough grip in said handshake. But here is Bill Self. He was asked, was there something that took place in the handshake line?
No, he just didn't want to shake hands, he just did a flyby. That's fine. That's fine.
Hunter had mentioned, Hunter had mentioned how it stuck with him how the K-State game went over in Manhattan. It stuck with him how they celebrated a little more, and he thought they would. You see that kind of stick with the team in this game, especially since it's a rivalry game?
Yeah, that stuff, the celebration going in the stands, and so we're used to that. So that's not. I will say this: when we got our ass kicked there, we shook everyone's hand and did a handshake line and all that stuff. So I guess it was different here today. But the whole thing is that's what happens with rivalries. I mean that's what happens with rivalries, and if it didn't stick with them, then they probably shouldn't be playing here. Because that's you always want to be your rival.
First thing to that is, anybody that's been in a relationship where emotions are involved knows that when somebody says, it's fine, and it's not like a genuine, no, I promise, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's fine. I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
Especially following it up with, we didn't, but that's fine.
Yeah. The it's fine was, all right, let me circle back around it. Yes, okay, here's the deal. Here's what happened. It was a flyby. Totally fine. We got our ass kicked there, and we shook hands. We did. Apparently, that's not the same thing that goes on here. We're used to the celebration and going into the stands and all of that stuff, where Jerome Tang, after the KU game, went and celebrated with the fans and everything, and all of that stuff. But the flyby that took place there, my first reaction to hearing that and seeing the tweets about it last night is, holy bleep, I need to go back. I wasn't paying attention. Let me check out the handshake line. And my second reaction was, we should always have a handshake line with the coaches on TV. I mean, it's like broadcasting 101. Unless there's some sort of an interaction with players on the court, we should always have the coaches coming together and meeting. That should happen every time on camera. And if they don't come together and meet, then we'll know. And if there's some sort of a controversy, then we'll know. But instead, Jerome Tang is walking down the sideline towards Bill Self, and it cuts to Hunter Dickinson because our player, and I get the broadcast, our player of the game is Hunter Dickinson, and shows his stats and everything, but it just one shot on Hunter Dickinson through the entire handshake line. That was it. It shows Jerome Tang shaking Hunter Dickinson's hand, patting him on the back, talking to DeJuan Harris, and then moving on. But we didn't get to see Jerome Tang and Bill Self, so I don't know what happened. Maybe somebody's got some video, some grainy Zapruder film that we can look at and try to decipher what took place. I don't think Bill Self would have the take after the game of, well, I mean, it was a flyby. It wasn't even shake hands. It was a flyby. If everything was perfectly fine. Like, I don't think it would be like sour grapes or anything. I think Bill Self, I would love to see the video, if there was video of it, And so I'm like, oh, let me go check it out. But it wasn't there. We should have it every single time because of situations like this. And I will also say, though, if in a winning effort, you're willing to go out there and celebrate and do all of that stuff, and it's the same thing. It's not the same as horns down. It's not the same as Rodney Terry. But when horns up are being thrown at fans, when you win, when you lose, expect horns down to be thrown back at you. When you win and you go up into the stands and celebrate with the fans, then if you lose, then, go shake hands. If we are having handshake lines. But this is the whole point. Jerome Tang has a right to be pissed. He has a right to be upset. They just got their ass whipped by their rival in a game where he really thought his team was going to play better, and they didn't. And the flyby with Bill Self might have been his own frustrations with his team. It might have been, winning by 22. It might have been DeJuan Harris coming off the floor with 1 minute to go. McCullough came off earlier than that. Dickinson came. When did Dickinson come off the floor? I think it was kind of late or whatever. But, Jankovic got in the game. The other walk-on that I don't remember his name, Pat something, who got the bucket on the goaltend and 2 rebounds. So they come on the floor, right? I don't know if there's anything more that Jerome Tang was frustrated about. There was no question in the postgame about it to Jerome Tang because, I don't know, nobody saw it. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if something happened in the speeches after the game to where then it was brought up to Bill Self of did something happen in the handshake line? Or if somebody witnessed something or Bill Self being frustrated or something like that. I have no idea. But we didn't hear about it from Jerome Tang. Here's Hunter Dickinson. And the question there in the middle for Bill Self when he talked about the handshake line of it's fine, it's fine, not a big deal. It was Hunter Dickinson said that their celebration sort of stuck with him. Here's Hunter Dickinson. Here's that quote from Hunter talking about the loss in Manhattan.
I saw how excited they were after they beat us, and I think that definitely kind of stuck with some of us. Just kind of how excited they were to beat. I mean, usually people are excited to beat us because, it's a rare occasion, but especially for them. And so I think we felt a little motivated coming in tonight, knowing that it was senior night, knowing we wanted to send us seniors out on the right note. And so I think it was a full team effort. Everybody pitched in, everybody played really well. And I think, this is a really good stepping stone for us heading into a really tough game against Houston.
Teams don't beat us very often, especially for them. He's taken on the waving the wheat, wearing the KU University Jayhawk basketball pride by being there for 5 minutes. Because he's done this a few times with his comments and things just about KU and endearing himself to KU fans. Not endearing himself to really anybody else in America outside of KU fans, but that's just who he is. And he knows who he is. KU fans know who he is. Michigan fans know who he is. You embrace it. If he plays for your team, you love it. If he doesn't play for your team, you can't stand him. I'd rather them have shown Bill Self and Jerome Tang in the handshake line after the game. I didn't need to see Hunter Dickinson, who had a phenomenal game.
Would they have that footage, though? With the camera?
There's got to be cameras that would have that, right?
They record on everything.
There's going to be a camera that would be on that one.
We got to see John Shire, carry off.
Guy Yes, there's so many different cameras there. Yeah, you got the overhead
windmill dunking 2 games later, I think.
That's right, yes. He was actually in the college basketball dunk He was practicing for the dunk competition at halftime of one of those games the next day. But yeah, they'll have it somewhere. They just cut to a different camera that was focused on Hunter Dickinson. But there's going to be a camera because there was a camera from behind the benches that was showing the final shot for K-State. When the final shot missed, Jerome Tang starts walking down. And then it cuts to the shot from across the court to Hunter Dickinson in the handshake line. So that camera that's just placed right there in the middle would have it. No idea. It might be blown out of proportion. Who knows? But it clearly bothered Bill Self to bring it up. It bothered him to bring it up. I don't know how great of a relationship Bill Self and Jerome Tang have. I have no idea how great of a relationship. We know there are some coaches out there that dislike each other. I don't know about Jerome Tang and Bill Self and what the relationship is like. I know this clearly rubbed Bill Self the wrong way, that he wasn't happy about the fact that it was a flyby of this. And, we got our ass kicked and we shook hands. It was, but apparently that's not the same thing here, according to Bill Self. Look, if you are going to have handshake lines, then yeah, go through the handshake line. I don't think it's really necessary to have this. I don't think Major League Baseball players are any less sportsmanship than others by only shaking hands with themselves after the game. They shake each other's hands. They go out there and hug each other and have a handshake line with themselves. Football players just go out there and mingle. The quarterback is only expected to go shake hands with the other quarterback. That's it. And then he can leave the field. Is it great sportsmanship if the quarterback shakes the hand of another quarterback real quick and then leaves? Why didn't he shake everybody's hand? The coach goes and shakes the hand of the other coach, and then that's it. And then as long as you do that, you have satisfied the sportsmanship quota for our viewing pleasure to know how you can or cannot handle losses. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. The auto show is coming up, and we got a little bit of preview of the auto show. We'll do that next. Matt Tate coming up at 11 o'clock. Yes, indeedy. Les Norman will be our guest coming up at noon. We'll talk some Royals baseball with Les, and then Mick Schaefer at 1 o'clock, KSHB 41 Sports Director. More Zone right after this. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you here in the zone, heading up until 2 o'clock. You know, the Kansas City Auto Show coming up Thursday through Sunday, March 14th through the 17th. And will be an awesome event, always a fun event with the Kansas City Auto Show at Bartle Hall. Joining us now to talk about it, Larry Carl, producer of the Kansas City Auto Show and also CEO of the Automobile Dealers Association of Kansas City. Larry, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. What's life for you leading up to the Auto Show right now as the producer in these final few stages?
Well, you know, I kind of feel like the air traffic controller that's got about 40 planes circling the airport, all low on fuel and all need to come land safely. And as we get closer to the show, each one, there's a special need for something. And so a lot of juggling, but we're excited to be back at our normal time frame in March.
What as somebody who's been around this industry for a long time, and just the auto show in general, what do you look forward to seeing? What is it about the auto show that gets you excited to go down there that, you know, maybe some other people will see, but somebody who's a car enthusiast that really, you know, gets some joy out of it?
You know what I think is really exciting, and this is my 15th auto show that I've produced, and to always see familiar faces from many, many years ago, but the next generation of car owners, car buyers, we're talking about kids generally, 10 to 12 to 13, where they start really getting an interest in cars, to see that kind of family tradition being carried on from generation to generation, and to see kids come up that escalator and the wow factor that comes over their face.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I love going to the auto show and to check those things out and see how awesome some of the cars are, some of the future, what those things may be like as well. Tell me about some of the show's featured activities, the electrical vehicle experience.
Yeah, our electric vehicle experience is an indoor track whereby we'll have professional drivers driving consumers in the latest EVs. We've got 6 brands to choose from and models within that. So we will have Nissan, Kia, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Ford, and maybe there's another surprise as well that I really can't announce because those vehicles might be sold before the show comes around. But and Volkswagen will be there as well. So we got 6 brands, probably about 18 to 20 vehicles on the track. Very safe. But you will be driven in the electric vehicle experience. And it allows people to really experience firsthand the zoom and the acceleration and the handling of these unique vehicles.
Now, these are professional NASCAR drivers, F1 Series drivers that will take you around in this track?
Well, not quite. I mean, it is inside,
so
we don't have that caliber of drivers.
I was just
wondering.
They're
very educated and they're very safe.
I was just wondering what my experience was going to be. Do I need to bring helmets and gear and everything to get ready for this?
It'll be electric, Jason.
Yeah, I love that. Nice job. Larry Carl, producer of the Kansas City Auto Show, is our guest. What other special activities do you think will be going on there at the auto show?
Well, you know, the big attraction obviously is all the new cars and SUVs and trucks, and each exhibitor, each brand that's there has their own unique way of engaging with the consumers. Volkswagen's, I'll tell you, within the Volkswagen display, the new electric ID Buzz, which is the new version of what the Volkswagen van was from back in the 60s. This is going to be no pun intended, a buzz generator. Really cool. We're getting a prototype for our Kansas City show. Mercedes-Benz is going to have a draw yourself in the car of your dream contest. I think the Nissan Pathfinder scavenger hunt will be going on while we're there. And we'll always have a collection of classic cars for those folks who like to see cars from a vintage period.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun. Larry Carl is our guest, producer of the Kansas City Auto Show and CEO of the Automobile Dealers Association of Kansas City. Tickets, traditional pricing, but also there's a way that you can save some money on tickets right now?
Well, sure. If you go online to kcautoshow.com, you'll be able to save $3 on a ticket from the box office price. So we would encourage our guests to go to kcautoshow.com and take a look at ticket offerings there. But, the auto show will also be held the same time that the big basketball tournament's in town. And there we do have a special pricing at the box office only. So an adult ticket price is only $12 during the basketball game. So there's a tremendous savings and value there.
Nice. Okay, so during the basketball games, it'll be $12 adult ticket at the box office.
Right, and you have to wear your college gear.
Okay.
So wear your favorite basketball team gear or hat. Show yourself or present yourself at the box office, and you'll get a special $12 adult ticket.
That is awesome. That is good to know. We will let people know that for sure. Larry Carl, producer of the Kansas City Auto Show, CEO of Automobile Dealers Association of Kansas City. Larry, thank you so much for stopping by. Appreciate the time, and looking forward to this event coming up here very soon at Bartle Hall. So it'll be a fun time in downtown Kansas City with some basketball and some cars going on.
Thanks very much, Jason. Appreciate it.
All right, there's Larry Carl, Kansas City Auto Show coming up March 14th through the 17th at Bartle Hall. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling more zone next.
Delivering all-natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock, 913-912-4810. We'll talk with Les Norman coming up at noon. little Royals baseball with Les Norman, breaking the norm. And then Mick Schaefer, KSHP 41 sports director, will be our guest. Right now, let's talk some college basketball, KU basketball. Matt Tate, R1S1Sports.com, the Perpetual Sports Network, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. Matt, welcome into the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I am doing just fine. What time did you leave Allen Fieldhouse last night?
1:02 a.m. And I didn't know you were going to ask that question, but I for whatever reason, as I was walking through the court, I looked up and saw the clock said 1:02. So I know that answer now.
The ghosts of former reporters are still there, waiting for Wayne Simeon to finish his. So,
isn't that the truth? We actually talked about that on the walk out.
Did you really?
Yeah.
One of my
longest one ever.
Yeah, one of my my best friends was a reporter there for the LJ World, and was there that night and still talks about it. And you know what? Wayne Simmons still talks about it too. We have some fun with him when he's around the office here.
Love it.
About that.
Love
so
it.
he understands it. He has some fun. And you know what? Good for him. Take all the time you want, man. You were there that long. A little different for Wayne Simeon than maybe some guys that have been there 5 minutes. But
well, and that was it, man. I mean, when Self walked into the media room, I told him, that's the best coaching job you've ever done, getting those guys to actually stick to the time limit last night. You know, that was really damn impressive. And look, I love that those guys got a chance to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a special moment for them and their families and all that. But I love even more that they realized, like, I've only been here 1 year.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? You know,
Yeah.
and so it was short and sweet, and you know, credit to everybody involved. It was exactly what it needed to be, because, you know, I had some people earlier in the day kind of saying, you know, now with the portal here, maybe it's time to get rid of senior speeches. And I was leaning that way. Like, I don't think that's a crazy thought either. I mean, you know, how are you gonna let all these guys just come for 1 year and then pour their hearts out like that? But, you know, if they all do it like those guys did last night, sign me up, keep it rolling. That was wonderful.
Yeah, I just I would hate to see that happen. I think it's a cool tradition, and so much about college sports, the traditions have been lost with the portal,
Good
with
call.
the conference realignment and things like that, and rivalries. I would hate to see that go by the wayside, even if some people have been there only for like 7 or 8 months. You can still grow and have a relationship with that program over 6 or 7 or 8 months, and the fans
You're right.
can develop
Yeah.
that too. I would hate to see that happen.
You're right, yeah, and you know, I'm sure you probably didn't see it because it wasn't up long, but I'm the only disappointment I had about last night is I had a hell of an idea for Parker Brown, and I didn't get to him in time to tell him this, but I think he missed an opportunity to give the greatest senior speech in the history of Kansas and in the history of senior speeches. I think he should have done what he did, exactly the moment he had, thanked his family, thanked his coaches, loved the opportunity. A Kansas kid from Burlington wanted to be a Jayhawk. This was a dream come true. End right there. But enough about me. And then he pulls out a piece of paper, and it's thoughts and notes from his brother Christian, who didn't get to give a senior speech.
Wow,
and he
cool.
said, "Hey, I'm going to give the rest of my time to my brother who didn't get to do this. I know you guys loved him. Here's his thoughts. Here's what he would have said to you." And then, you know, if you're really feeling it, and I don't know that Parker has this in his personality, but if you're really feeling it, you could have ended in Christian's words with, you know, sort of the, "Hey, thank you all again. Can't tell you what it meant to be a Jayhawk, blah, 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 rock chalk," and then a little pause, and then that signature yell that Christian Brown yelled at damn near every opponent he ever played against. And I don't know if I can say it on the air, so I won't, but you know the one I'm talking about. And if Parker yelled that at the top of his lungs and then just dropped the mic, I don't know that Allen Fieldhouse would ever recover, man. That would have been the coolest senior speech of all time. So, it's okay. He did great, and you know, he didn't miss the opportunity because he didn't know the opportunity existed. But that would have been epic.
You wouldn't have walked out of there at 102.
There you go. Yeah, good point. Good point.
Matt Tate is our guest. All right, let's get to the game because it was a thumping by KU, 90-68 over K-State. What was your reaction? What was your takeaway from that game, that performance last night?
Well, you know, the biggest thing was they finally got up double digits on somebody and then put them away. And if they'd been able to do that throughout the course of the conference schedule, they might still be in this thing with Houston, and instead of playing for a 4, 5, or 6 seed. So, I think Kansas State's certainly a lesser opponent, and Kansas State's not an offensive juggernaut or anything like that. But Kansas State beat them, so it's not like Kansas State's not capable. And on top of that, KU was up I think a dozen in Manhattan in that game that they lost. So that was one of those where they got up double digits and then just couldn't put a team away. And so I think for their psyche and as they're starting to try to tighten the screws and fine-tune everything for this stretch run, I think last night was huge that they were able to get up big and then just keep their foot down and keep going. And it came from all areas. I mean, Hunter Dickinson was good. Kevin McCullough was good. DeJuan Harris was good. KJ Adams ended up with 16 points, and he could have had 30. He missed a bunch of layups. But, he was still very good and very active and had some big-time highlights. The bench was good. Nick Timberlake hit 4 threes. I mean, how long have they been waiting to see that happen? So, it's one game, and I think it's really easy for people to get overexcited about that because this is what people have been wanting to see from this team all year. So I don't know that we can fully sit here and say, hey, there it is. They've arrived. This is the team. I don't know that we're there. That's one game. But I do think that they had to have at least one of those before postseason arrives. And so not only was it good to see that they, found that for themselves, but it also, I'm sure, gives them a ton of confidence going into Saturday at Houston. And I don't give them a great chance down there, but if they can go find a way to win that one, well, now you're talking about really putting something together and really finding that moment where it clicks and you can actually get on a roll. And we all know what getting on a roll in March means. It means anything's possible. So I think that was by far the biggest thing about last night. They got exactly what they wanted and needed out of that game, and they probably walked away with more confidence than they've had in several weeks.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I wanted to talk about one of the guys there because we've talked about Hunter Dickinson before, and we can get into that in his game, 15, 20, and 5 blocks as well. Just a dominant effort in Kevin McCullough and, him playing the last couple of games and what that means for KU moving forward. Nick Timberlake was part of the post-game press conference last night for Bill Self, and he joked about, his family, and he told his family he was going to have 5 threes last night in the game, and when he hit his 4th three, he thought it was 5, and so he held up the number 5 to his family, and then the family looked back at him with the 5, and Bill Self joked and said, well, apparently they can't count either. So,
yeah, that was great.
which was awesome. So he goes 4 of 5 from the three-point line and scores 18 points. We've seen it from Timberlake before where he's had a good game and hit a couple of threes and then didn't come back and do it the next game. Is this sort of one of those senior night great effort by Timberlake, or can this be a sort of a jumping off point for Timberlake to be a guy that can be a little bit more reliable when the shot's there, it's open, knock it down? Because a couple of those shots were wide open, and you know what? A couple of those shots that have been wide open before, he's missing. And last night he was knocking them down. So can this be something that, as a team, you mentioned they got what they needed and some confidence heading into Houston. Can this be that for Timberlake? Because that would go a long way if you had a three-point threat like him out there that just, that you can't scrape and come down and help double on a dribble drive from DeJuan Harris if you're guarding Timberlake.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I mean, when Self grabbed the mic to introduce the speeches, that's what he told the crowd. He said, how different are we when he shoots like that? That's a pretty public and profound statement to make, and a reminder that, yeah, this guy can help. And I think you hit it on the head. I think the fact that the reason to think that this can be sustained is because those shots are going to be there. They weren't ridiculously difficult shots. He didn't have to create them on his own. He didn't have to, shoot from Damian Lillard distance. I mean, it was just open jumpers. He got the ball and he shot it and he made it. So he's been struggling with that all year. He's like you said, he's missed those shots too. But I think confidence is a funny thing. I think numbers have a way of evening themselves out too. And if you look at his stats, he's been in the 20s from 3-point range all season. 20%, 25%, 26%. I mean, just, not anything like what he's used to. He's a career 40% shooter. So is there still time for that number to kind of even out? I think maybe. And I think over a large sample size, numbers tend to do that. So I looked after last night after he made those 4, and it's a small thing, and I don't think he's going to, celebrate it or make T-shirts or anything like that, but he's shooting 30% from 3-point range right now. And if you're in the 30s, you know, that's more respectable. So you make 4 or 5 next game, you make 3 of 5 the next game, you make 2 for 4 the game after that. All of a sudden, you're creeping toward 33, 34, 35%, and you're doing it consistently. So I think that's the two things that have me thinking that he can still be a factor and help this team is just the law of averages, the numbers evening out, and the fact that the shots he's missed, the shots he's made, they've all been the same shot. It's just they just have to go down. So confident kid, hardworking kid, tough-minded kid. He's gotten a bad rap this year because he's not making shots, but he's working and his teammates respect him and obviously Coach Self has some sort of soft spot or love for him because he keeps putting him out there, and that may be as simple as I don't have a bench. What are my options? But be that as it may, he still is plugging him in and telling him go do what you can do for us. So maybe there's time for it still. It'll be really interesting to see. But if they make any kind of run, there's no doubt in my mind that he will probably be part of the reason for that. And as you said a minute ago. It's just so obvious. I mean, Hunter had one of his best games, and what's the big difference? Yeah, the big difference is they had a shooter who made people respect that, and they couldn't just clog the paint and create problems for Hunter with double and triple teams all night. So that was a big development there for both of those guys.
Visiting with Matt Tate, R1S1 Sports of the Perpetual Sports Network, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. Yeah, I had mentioned it yesterday going into the game because one of the things I was talking about was Tyler Perry had to have a big game, and Kaluma needed to be aggressive and be his sort of all-around self if K-State was going to have a chance. And we'll talk about the defense that KU played on those particular guys, especially Tyler Perry. But one of the things I also talked about was, Nick Timberlake. And the last time he had more than 2 3-pointers in a game was before Christmas. I mean, it's a shocking thing to see that Nick Timberlake hadn't had more than 2 3-pointers in a game since Yale, December 22nd. And so he had 4 last night, so he doubles what was his previous Big 12 high. And I think that's like if he went 2 of 3, I'm like, all right, well, he's hit a couple threes in games before.
Yeah.
So to go 4 of 5 is like, all right, this was his best game in a KU uniform because of the meaning, because it was senior night, because it was K-State, and he goes 4 and 5. I think there's a little bit more when you say, man, this guy, he goes 2 of 5, he can go 2 of 6, but, I mean, that's just sort of generic for a guy who's a quote-unquote shooter. Last night was like the first one that it felt like, all right, that's what an actual shooter and what Nick Timberlake was brought in to do was last night's game. He doesn't have to score 18 a game like he did at Towson, but can he drop 9? Can he drop 12 from time to time, hit a free throw, a couple free throws like he did? That's really, his role on this team. And, don't give up more than he puts in on a given day.
There you go. Yeah. Well, and, if you get him going and Johnny Furphy's been pretty consistent, he's had a couple of quiet games. I wouldn't say bad games, but quiet over the last 2. But that's a kid who we know can make 2, 3, 4, 5 a night. I mean, that's so you put 2 of those guys out there. It changes this team big time, and I think what's crazy is by Kansas standards, it's been a rough year, a very rough year, right? You just don't see them finish 10-7, 10-8, 11-7 in conference play. I mean, that's just unheard of, and so I get why people are saying, this is a bad team, one of Self's worst teams, but none of that matters if they figure it out now. And I'm not saying they're going to, and I don't know that he would tell you they're going to, but they still have the chance to do that. And and all the lessons that they've kind of had to learn the hard way this year, and all of the grinding that they've done, and the good and the bad that comes with that, and all those things that they've fought through, they've learned from. I really believe that. And so there's no time like now to take all those lessons and take all of that effort and wisdom that you've accumulated over the season and put it together and say, okay, this is what it takes. This is what we have to do, and we'll either go do it or we won't. But there's no more guesswork in that. It's very clear what this team needs to be and what they can be, and I think they all understand that their path forward to a big run or a deep run is very cut and dry. This is the type of team we need to be on both ends. We need to, spread the floor. We need to knock down shots. We need to let Hunter do what Hunter does, and everybody plays off of that. And then on defense, we just have to, muck it up and make people play bad and do what Bill Self teams always do. And easier said than done, but I think, for whatever reason, it took this team a while to embrace that, understand that, accept that, whatever the word you want to use is. It took them a while to get there, but I think they understand it now, and now it's just a matter of can they go out and execute it.
Is there something to the last one on Timberlake, and then we'll move on to some other things, especially defense and how they played, but is there something to him, starting the game as opposed to coming off the bench? I mean, he's been a guy who's, for 3 straight years he started games, and maybe it's a rhythm thing for him. But, he started, 5 games in conference play so far, and in those 5 games, he's 10 of 25 from behind the arc, so 40% shooting from 3 in the games that he starts. Is there something to that? Is that maybe a tweak for Bill Self moving forward, that Timberlake's in your starting rotation, and early on you set up some plays for him, get the range down. If he knocks it down, or if it barely misses, as opposed to, okay, that was kind of a brick, then you kind of know what you have. Okay, we've got an answer. We've got an option this game, as opposed to, okay, we're bringing this guy off the bench with 16 minutes to go after the first time out. Now we're going to our bench. There's a different rotation, sort of makeshift. El Marco's going to be out there, and Parker's going to be out there with them. And so maybe the view of what he's supposed to do at that particular time maybe throws him out of his game. I don't know. I have no idea. Bill Self is the guy who's in charge of all the personalities, right? I don't know if there's something to that, to where in those 5 games he's actually shooting 40% from 3 when he started.
Yeah, well, I think the numbers don't lie, and I think you're probably on to something there. The problem with that is, who do you take out?
Right, absolutely.
Right? When they're healthy, it's not going to be Dewan, it's not going to be Hunter, it's not going to be KJ, and it's not going to be McCullough.
Yeah,
so
it's Furphy.
you're having to flip the coin on Johnny Furphy or Nick, and we've seen both, right? We've seen them both start. We've seen them both come off the bench, and I don't think either one of them is overly impressive coming off the bench. So I think that's a conundrum. That's if you could have 6 starters, I think you'd have just solved it. And he'd be, Bill Self would do a new promo intro here for you and call you the smartest man in the world or whatever.
6 starters. There it is. Play with 6 players. Do that.
That's all you got to do.
New age
and
basketball.
You win the title.
See?
It's easy.
Yes, I know. Come on. I mean, KU at home plays with 8. So, come on, Matt. So let's go.
Right. There you go.
Matt Tate,
go ahead.
You're
on to it. I think that's been a relevant part of Nick and his progress here. Mm-hmm. I definitely think you're right. I think if you're Kansas or yourself moving forward, you just have to sit him down and say, look, you've got it now. You're dialed in. So you're going to be our 6th man, and all you got to do is keep doing what you're doing. It's just you're going to come in at a different time. And I think that's probably the way they will go, and I think that's probably something he can handle. He's a good dude. He's a mature kid. He's tough. If he's to the point where, well, I have to be starting to feel good out there. I mean, give me a break, right? That I know that's a thing, but for a kid who just came from Towson to Kansas, I don't know that you can use that way or say that. And he gave the line of the night last night, right, when he said he got a new nickname at Kansas playing for Coach Self, and he said, my new nickname is Soft. He goes, I've never been called soft so many times in my life. So it's clear that through all this ups and downs and the rough season and the slump and all that he's gone through, he's still in it. He's still in it, and he still thinks he can help. And so, yeah, you just tell him, you've dialed it in, man. Now just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll give you the minutes. They're just going to come, off the bench. But that doesn't mean you can't help us. And you just build them up, and I'm sure that's what they'll do.
Matt Tate's our guest, R1S1 Sports of the Perpetual Sports Network, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. Defensively for KU, my interpretation of Bill Self saying that he was less discouraged than he is after some other losses when they, lost to Baylor. He's, I wouldn't say I'm encouraged, but less discouraged. And my interpretation was this is a team that offensively against Baylor, they kind of did what their sort of MO is, what their style of play is going to be. 40 points combined from Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough. You had 9 assists from DeJuan Harris, and defensively the second half was sort of a letdown, and that's not the way KU plays. And so they're not a team that the defense is just going to fluctuate from game to game. That was my interpretation of why Bill Self said less discouraged, because they sort of went out and played a good portion of their game for a good portion of that game against Baylor. But, it's Baylor at home, and they're beating a lot of teams. They're one of the best teams in America playing at home, and they shoot 41% from behind the arc for a reason. And I bring that up because of how KU defended last night, and Jerome Tang said it after the game, that so much attention on Tyler Perry, that it was different than in Manhattan when, the way they defended Tyler Perry. And he said, tonight it was on the ball screens, it was double teams, it was hard hedges, it was over the screen. It was just focus on Perry as the guy that stirs the drink for K-State. And I thought they executed pretty well. What did you see defensively from KU last night? And I think that's a big – they scored 90. I get it. They scored 90. But defensively, holding – Perry, Kaluma, and Carter to a total of 15 points is a pretty tough task to ask any defense.
For sure, yeah, and I think that's exactly right. I mean, to your point, they scored 90, but they only needed 69, right? So that's something, and I think that team is well equipped to score 68, 69, 70 points, without really even doing anything special. So it is all going to come back down to their defense. And, he made it very clear that their emphasis throughout the week preparing for this game was on the perimeter. I mean, they obviously knew they had to shut down that perimeter, which, again, you go back to that BYU loss at home, and that's what surprises me that one happened, because they did the same thing there. It was a clear emphasis on one part of that BYU offense, and that was obviously their three-point shooting. And for whatever reason, they didn't get it done. Now, maybe that was without Kevin McCullough, and so maybe that's a little bit more of a part of it than any of us realize. I mean, we all know that McCullough's a defensive guru and a really good defensive player, but maybe we forgot that, right? I certainly did until I just mentioned it right there. So, I think that Self likes this team. I think a part of the reason that he was encouraged in that Baylor game was, exactly what you just talked about, but also because that game was the one that Kevin McCullough came back. And until that point, I don't know that he thought he was coming back this year. And so after that, they competed, they played hard. Kevin had 20, I think, that game. It was an indication to him that, okay, I've got my squad. Like, warts and all, here we are. We've got our team now. And if we can just line things up and find our path and get on a little bit of a roll and find some confidence, we may still have a shot at this thing. And I think he genuinely believes that, and I think he should believe that. I mean, you've got two All-American type talents in McCullough and Hunter Dickinson. You've got a national championship point guard. You've got a jack of all trades in KJ Adams who can play that jackknife position and give you anything and everything, anywhere and anywhere you want it. And then you've got, a couple of guys who can shoot the ball if they can find their consistency from the outside, and Furphy and Timberlake. So there's no reason to think that he wouldn't think they can still go get their goals and make a run. But until McCullough was back, I don't think anybody was thinking that this team's not going to make any kind of run without him. So part of it's definitely the way they're playing. Part of it's the way that they're starting to show, the smallest signs of understanding and figuring it out on the defensive end. But I really think that the other part of it is just like, I got my team back, and now we got a chance.
Visiting with Matt Tate, R1S1Sports.com. Last one for you. What do you think about this matchup with Houston? They took care of the Cougars earlier this year at home by 13, and they jumped on them pretty quick out of the gates, did KU. And not like Kelvin Sampson would be surprised by that, considering he's coached in the Big 12 before. But what do you think of this matchup now heading down to Houston, where Houston's got the Big 12 on the line, a 1 seed, all of that stuff to play for. But Kansas also, has a pretty decent amount to play for, and what it can mean moving on to a postseason play.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because what do we got tonight? Iowa State plays BYU at home. and Houston plays at UCF, and one of those two is going to win the Big 12, obviously, and probably Houston. But Kansas lost at UCF, right?
Yeah.
And BYU won at Allen Fieldhouse. So could they win at Hilton? Sure. So I think tonight will be big for what this weekend's about. I think if Houston needs to win the Big 12, I think they probably will. I think if Iowa State loses tonight and Houston wins tonight and it's over, I don't know that Kansas will get the same Houston team. And I don't think Kansas wants to dodge anybody. I don't think Kansas wants to get any favors handed out to them or anything like that. But you'll take what you get. There's no question about that. You're not going to, turn it in and say no thanks. But I think that'll be a big factor. And so I don't know that, I don't know that I can make – my assessment doesn't mean anything, but I don't know that I can make a full assessment on what to expect this weekend until we see tonight's results. Because, again, if Houston has to win that game for the conference, I think you're running into a buzzsaw. I think you're talking about a team that's playing at home, that's ranked number one in the country, that's as good as anybody, that has designs on winning a national title, that has a chance to hit you in the mouth after you embarrass them at your place. I mean, there's so many things that line up pro Houston there, right? I mean, there's a lot there. Plus, Kansas hasn't been good on the road. But if that's kind of in the bag and you get a chance to maybe have Kansas be the more hungry team going into that, because I think Kansas, I think it's important to them to try to get that 4 seed. I don't think they want to play on that first day, which I guess would be the second day now.
It'd be,
in
Thursday,
the Big 12 tournament.
Thursday at 11:30 they'd be playing in Kansas City here. Thursday 11:30, and then if they win, they play Friday at 11:30. But that 4 seed, you'd be playing what, later on that night?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just think you get one extra day too, right?
Yeah.
It's one less day you
right.
have to play. So
That's right.
I think that I think that's been a big goal, a big focus of the last couple of weeks. I think it's been a few weeks since they kind of mailed in the idea that they could win the Big 12. But they do believe they can still win the Big 12 tournament. They do believe they can still make a deep run. I'm sure they still believe they can win a national title. So it gives them a huge, huge opportunity. I mean, if they were playing Oklahoma State at home, they would have the same opportunity because they would just, need to win and get some help. But the chance to go down and beat number one at their place and to possibly elevate yourself into that seed that you've sort of been gunning for the last 3 weeks to get that extra day of rest for your guys, and then to win 2 in a row and then to head into the Big 12 tournament, which, Kansas's track record in that tournament is as good as anybody's, and it's in Kansas City, and there's all kinds of good vibes surrounding that, So again, I think it would just be another reminder that, man, maybe this is the time it's all coming together. It might have taken longer than anybody would have wanted it. It might have been the longest we've ever seen them go without having a true identity or finding themselves and finding that run or that stretch that they can get on where it really makes you think they are who they're going to be and that maybe they have a shot. We've usually seen that as early as January and usually at the latest mid-February. But here we are, March 6th, and they're still trying to find it. But I think that gives them a little bit of extra motivation. I think you'll see a very fired-up, motivated Kansas team. Again, I think a lot will depend on the Houston outcome and Iowa State outcome and all that for what they'll be facing, but that is out of their control. I think what you'll see from Kansas should be, like I just said, a very motivated, fired-up team that understands, like, people are absolutely writing us off, and we've given them every reason to do that. Maybe let's go down here and beat number one and remind them that we're still here and we haven't gone anywhere, and it would not be the smartest move to write us off just yet. Now, what happens from there is anybody's guess. They could make the Final Four or lose in the first round. I mean, we still don't know the answer to that. But I think when you're looking at the micro part of it and really trying to get into these guys' heads, they're competitors. And they don't like when people don't think they're any good. And that's been a big part of this whole season. So I think if they're healthy and they've got their whole team, they're going to be very motivated. So, again, I'd probably pick Houston, but I think that'll be a great game.
Matt Tate, R1S1Sports.com, the Perpetual Sports Network, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. Matt, you're the man. Appreciate the time as always, brother. We'll talk next week and continue enjoying some college basketball. Appreciate it, man.
Sounds good. No better time of year.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
You bet. There's Matt Tate. Great stuff from him. And look, man, it's the 5 versus the 4 seed is crucial in the Big 12 because you're looking at if they're the 5 seed, they play Wednesday at 11:30, Thursday at 11:30. If they win both of those games, now you're playing Friday night against the number 1 seed, which is, expected to be Houston. But you would also be playing your third game in 3 days against Houston, where they would be playing their second game in 2 days because they wouldn't have had to play on Wednesday. As opposed to if you finish with the 4 seed, well, then you have the same amount of mileage on your legs in terms of minutes here in Kansas City by, having Wednesday off and just having to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday if you were, to win those first couple of games. So 5 seed, 4 seed, pretty crucial for KU. We'll see what happens moving forward this weekend, and also Iowa State, BYU, Houston, and Texas Tech, et cetera, to see where KU ends up finishing. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Dylan Michaels. We had up until 2 o'clock. We will talk with Les Norman coming up at noon. Breaking the norm. Thank you to Matt Tate in the previous segment, talking some college basketball. And sort of interesting, I'm looking at the standings and the game times for next week. And we talked about it yesterday with Todd Lebo. The men's and women's tournaments will overlap at T-Mobile coming up in what would be a couple weeks. Yeah, so no, 5 days. Jeez, or 6 days. Jeez, it's Tuesday. Tuesday. Is it free agency yet? I mean, come on. But no, on Tuesday, the men's and women's tournament will overlap with the women's tournament starting tomorrow, and then wrapping up on Tuesday with their championship game on Tuesday night, and the men getting their first 2 games underway on Tuesday morning/afternoon, with the 12 seed playing the 13 and the 11 seed playing the 14. And I'm looking at it, and it could be good news, bad news for K-State, that they might have both their teams playing on Tuesday. Bad news would be K-State basketball if Cincinnati wins this weekend and K-State loses to Iowa State. Cincinnati, I think, is playing West Virginia at home. So if Cincinnati wins and K-State loses, then K-State would then play on Tuesday. And there's a decent chance that K-State's playing Tuesday night in the women's bracket for the championship. So it would be a fun little double dip for K-State fans that day, but not exactly in the men would be the warm-up to a championship. So you'd watch the men's team go out there, try to win a game. And if they do that, then great, fun, hang around there downtown, which is the beauty of downtown being the way that it is right now, as opposed to, let's say, Kemper back in the day or whatever it might have been, whatever we might be talking about, or if you were at the Truman Sports Complex or whatever. But having the downtown area, downtown space, go to the game, hang out around Power and Light or wherever, and then head back to the championship game that night. So if K-State takes care of business on the women's side, but that's going to be a tough tournament run for them as the 3 seed as it stands right now. So they may be playing both games on Tuesday. Certainly there's a decent chance, and we'll see what happens with some of the other finishes this weekend and tonight, and games still left to be played. 913-912-4810. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. I do want to say there's video going on around there from the handshake line in Manhattan, and it didn't exactly look like a warm embrace between Jerome Tang and Bill Self in the handshake line in Manhattan. It looked like a couple of guys fly by, buzzing the tower, just a quick little handout, then move on. I don't know, was Jerome Tang returning the favor in a I have no idea. But we didn't get to see video of last night's handshake line. But there is video of the handshake line in Manhattan, and it sort of looked like a couple coaches that just kind of a flyby. But regardless, if you're going to do the handshake line, whatever. Also, always keep the cameras on the coaches. We say in the industry, always be rolling. And I would say on the TV side, always keep the cameras on the coaches. Always keep cameras on. AKCOC.
But we also know you have the footage. We know
That's
that
right.
the cameras have it somewhere.
Yeah. I've always said ACCOC. AKCOC, always keep cameras on coaches. ACCOC. You tell every single cameraman and producer there in some of these games, ACCOC, man. At the end of the game, you got to ACCOC. Always keep the camera on the coaches. 913-912-4810 is the text line. We haven't talked much Missouri basketball today. God. You know what last night was? Last night was remembering an annoyance that continues to come up time and time again of what took place in late March and April of 2014. And what I was asking, and I wasn't the only one, asking Missouri to go and do, that they couldn't possibly find themselves and bring themselves to do that. And Mike Alden couldn't possibly do that. If you remember back in 2014, which, if you're a Missouri fan, it was a long time ago. It's football school. But on the basketball side, that was the Frank Haith hey, I'm going to go interview with Tulsa. I'd like a contract extension here. I don't know about a contract extension. Well, then I'm going to go interview with Tulsa. Great. Do you need to use our plane to go down to Tulsa? Awesome. But the issue that came up with that was, Mike Alden talking to reporters after Frank Haith was introduced as the head coach there at Tulsa was like, well, no, there was an understanding of there was a sense of urgency for next year. Frank Haith at that time had coached for 3 years. It was not working. You knew it was heading in the wrong direction. He was also suspended a number of games earlier that year for what happened at Miami. It was heading in the wrong direction. And Mike Alden, says, no, we had total faith in Haith, that he was our coach. The man, what he's done with the team and all that stuff, it's going to be heading in the right direction. But I did tell him there's a sense of urgency for next year. Well, what happens is a sense of urgency. So if they don't meet that, are you going to fire him? So what you're saying is you have total faith in him, except for the fact that if he does not succeed the next year, after going from a 2 seed to a 9 seed to the NIT and heading in the wrong direction and players being upset and the sort of fracturing and all of that stuff, that he's going to be fired after one more year? Well, he beats the Cavalry out of town, and he heads to Tulsa. The issue is Mike Alden saying, well, we're not going to fire Frank Haith. We're going to stay with him one more year. Instead of saying, we are firing him, and we're doing something that will show that we care about basketball and not just taking the status quo. We care about basketball. And Bruce Pearl's show cause is expiring. And you know who else's show cause is expiring? Kelvin Sampson. Bruce Pearl and Kelvin Sampson's show cause are expiring the same offseason. Then the same month. And you believe in Haith. And so many people around the program, or at least fans that were watching, is like, this isn't working. You have to move on. You've got an out. You got an out. You got the issues at Miami. Boom, fire him for cause. You've got the out right there. Now we believe in him. So then Bruce Pearl gets hired by Auburn. Kelvin Sampson gets hired by Houston. And a week later, Frank Haith takes the Tulsa job. So you got neither of those guys, and he screwed you over by leaving late. 2-3 weeks after the Final Four, the national championship game, he goes to Tulsa. And then they hire Kim Anderson. But I wasn't the only one saying, did you get a chance to go get Bruce Pearl? He hosted Aaron Kraft at a barbecue. That's what he did. He wasn't going, it wasn't Louisville basketball in the dorm rooms, okay? There's a little different scandal there. Kelvin Sampson was texting Eric Gordon at Indiana. He was texting Eric Gordon, and his show cause is expiring. Go hire high-level coaches that you know are proven. Get Kim Anderson. Oh, we can get this Michael Porter Jr. guy. Let's go get Konzo. I hope Dennis Gates can get it turned around. And I like Dennis Gates, but I liked Konzo Martin too. The man. What seemed to be the coach. But the results weren't there. And the difference with Mizzou and down the road at KU is after 3 years of Frank Haith, KU would have said, no Moss, get the hell out. Not good enough because there's a standard here. And at Mizzou, it's like, well, next year there'll be a sense of urgency here. Okay. And the difference being you passed up on Bill Self and John Calipari for Quinn Snyder. But other than that, not a big deal. And you couldn't bring yourself to hire Bruce Pearl or Kelvin Sampson. Why? Well, because, the whole Frank Haith thing at Miami. And then Bruce Pearl comes in and kicks your ass. And Kelvin Sampson's the number 1 team in America at Houston. That's cool, though. They do have one more chance to win a game in the SEC this year. We'll talk with Les Norman. We'll get some baseball talk coming up in the noon hour. Breaking the norm. Les Norman. We'll have fun with him. And we'll also talk some Chiefs today as well. I do want to get into some of the free agency stuff that's being talked about, the franchise tags that went out yesterday. But there's been so much conversation about Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed, rightfully so. And the clock continues to tick on Chris Jones and them coming up with some sort of a deal before Monday's negotiation period opening up. But there hasn't been a whole lot of talk about some of the other players on the Chiefs and where the priorities may be with their own free agents not named Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. I do want to get into a little bit of that as well. And Mick Schaefer before the show is over. More Zone coming up next with Les Norman.
Com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you on this Wednesday edition of the show. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up an hour from now, KSHB 41 sports director. We've talked a decent amount of college basketball today with the Sunflower Showdown last night and the regular season wrapping up on Saturday before tournament time and the women's Big 12 tournament getting underway tomorrow at T-Mobile. Let's talk some Royals baseball. A few weeks away from getting their season underway, and joining us now is Les Norman from Breaking the Norm here in the Zone. Les, what is up, brother? How you doing today?
Man, it has been a long time. This off season for us getting back into this, man, this one feels like a long time. Wow.
You are right about that. I don't know. It's weird because it's different with the Chiefs because the off season is shorter because the Super Bowl happens. We got a parade, 1 week off, and then the combine and free agency, and it just is a frenzy that happens after that. This has felt like an extra long time. Why do you think that is? Is it because of the signings and sort of you get excited about what's going to happen, and so it maybe feels like the time slows down, or why do you think this off season has felt a little bit longer than others?
I think that you get. Number one, when you win a second consecutive Super Bowl, your mind's set on the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then you have all these off-season signings that are getting everybody, including myself, really excited, more so than lately, than previous years. And then, we've already had like 3 80-degree days before March even hit.
Yeah.
And so, with the weather and with the anticipation and the winning going on with the NFL and the Chiefs and all that, I think probably impatience on my part at least.
I think it's a great point because, I'm sitting here like, can we get to the regular season? Or it feels like, maybe we got to be close to the regular season, right? And it's like, well, no, we're still 22 days away. We're still 3 weeks from tomorrow away from the regular season. It feels like it should be closer for some reason. Let's start with this then, because our weekly conversations will start in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Let's start with just your excitement for the season with the moves they've made. And Les, they're 9-3 down in the Cactus League. They are leading the Cactus League, so that's got to really increase and pump the juices for you. But in all seriousness, your excitement for this season by some of the moves that were made in the front office.
Yeah, who needs a payroll like the Dodgers when you're leading the Cactus League?
Yeah.
Isn't that fantastic?
What more do you want?
Of course, we never want to get overly excited about that, but this feels different for me. I mean, I'm really excited about the signings. And look, I know there's been a lot, and it should be a lot of conversation about the new stadium, and people are for it and against it, and whatever side you stand on that, and also the timing of the long-term deal of Bobby Witt Jr. I mean, who would have ever signed a superstar on the Royals this early in their career? I mean, I don't really remember that happening, at least to that extent, for that amount of money. And so John Sherman and his ownership and this front office, and especially with JJ as well, have really shown, not just with signing Bobby Witt Jr., but with all these off-season signings, that they're ready to win now, that it's not the continued rebuild, and we're not continuing to be haunted by the 10 years ago winning a World Series, and you should just accept that, and so now let's go back to rebuilding. I mean, they have shown that they're wanting to win now. They have shown that even in just the 1-year contracts, except for Seth Lugo's 2-year contract, that they've got a shot to win this thing now. That it's not just we're just going to spend a little bit of money here. I mean, they have opened up the checkbook and put the Royals in a position to win now. I mean, the other day you're looking at on TV watching the guys in the MLB network. They're picking the Royals to win the division. And so, no, that doesn't mean they will, but that's just going to show that the moves they're making with the personnel that they're signing are worthy of legitimate reasons to expect that actually could happen. So from the pitching standpoint, first and foremost, because that was the biggest glaring situation, now it's a whole revamped starting rotation. You've got Will Smith, who can be a good left-handed closer, who's proven. You've got a different bullpen, and now you've had some injuries in spring training that you're sad for those guys and you hate it. But you've also got all these other options that don't necessarily scare you, like, now that's going to leave a big hole.
Yeah.
So, and then I guess the last thing, I'll shorten this one up, but usually in spring training off, and you'll have fans that think, they're hitting 450 in spring training, which means they're going to hit 420 during the regular season. It doesn't work that way. It's not realistic, but you're seeing a lot of consistency. You're seeing a lot of guys that are fighting for positions. You don't know how the positional thing is going to hold up yet. And you've got guys like Garcia. Massey showed great improvement. And you've also got Frazier, who can be a part of that too. Garcia's proven. Vinny's back. Obviously, the signing of Bobby Witt Jr., proven. I mean, this team already has fewer question marks than at the end of last season that we thought were going to happen. And so if that's not reason to realistically look forward to a really good season, I don't know what is.
Yeah, the MLB Network the other night, that's a really interesting point because it's one thing for, my excitement around here, and, there's always the hope springs eternal. And, I had a lunch bet that I, have to pay off. One more because I lost both the Royals and Chiefs. The first lunch bet I ever had to pay off was this last year because I was overly optimistic on the Royals. And that usually comes back to bite me. Being overly optimistic on the Chiefs has never hurt me until this year, even though they won the Super Bowl. But some of those individual numbers were down from where they were a year ago. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'll probably, fall into the same category of being overly optimistic. But the point on the MLB Network I thought is a good one because where I sort of have my own hopes and general, glass half full view before a season starts and try to find that throughout the year. And hearing and seeing Yonder Alonso on MLB Network wearing a Royals jersey and picking them to win the Central, again, like you said, it's one person and it's their opinion, and it doesn't make the Royals any different. They didn't just add an extra, bat or an arm because somebody picked them to win the Central. But it is sort of validating to a degree of the excitement that's there, that there are others nationally that have seen what the Royals have done, and there's an awareness of the Central. Nobody's saying they're going to win the East, so a little different, but how the Central's made up, there's a little validation there in some of the excitement to see some national media members go, no, I see what's going on there, and I know that this team lost 100-plus games last year, but you know what? This is going to be one of the bigger turnarounds in baseball, and they're going to find themselves winning the division and being in the playoffs.
Yeah, and, another thing that really excites me about this, too, is that the Royals have not just shown that they're serious by signing all these newer players, but if MJ Melendez doesn't have a good first few weeks or first month, then I believe that he is going to find his way back to the bench or back to another option because you've got Garrett Hampson, you've got guys that can play multiple positions and be good outfielders that can produce as well. And there's no reason to not give them a shot because Melendez isn't doing what he needs to be doing to keep his big league starting job. At worst case, you're going to get other guys that just have more experience and may put up the same numbers, but they're going to be able to relax and not pressure themselves. And so this Royals team is going to have a lot more options. I love the fact that most likely Kyle Isbell is going to be starting in center field because he is a great center fielder and a left-handed bat. Now, Drew Waters did show some signs. He showed some power at the end of last year and showed some more consistency, but he's not as good of an outfielder as Isbell is. And if Kyle Isbell is told, hey, the job is yours to lose, go relax and play, we don't know what he's capable of doing yet. And so that really excites me to have him in center field because he's a pure center fielder. And then these good veteran power options at the corners, especially if Melendez doesn't pan out, because, you know, he can hit home runs. That's great. But his average and strikeouts have been way down and for a consistent time. So now is the time for him. If you're not going to do it, we've got people that can, because we're about winning now. That makes me realize this Royals team is really serious, and Royals fans should be excited about that.
Visiting with Les Norman of Breaking the Norm, you mentioned MJ Melendez, and it is something that I wanted to ask you about in his transition to outfield and sort of that full-on now transition to outfield. You know, last year carrying around the catcher's gear and an outfielder's glove as well, and the Royals saying, all right, we got Freddie Fermin up here. We've already got Salvi, we know that, and your defense behind the dish isn't good enough. Let's put you out in the outfield, and you're a good enough athlete, so let's see what you got out there. And learning on the fly through the season, that transition to outfield, we've seen some guys do it before. Alex Gordon was brilliant in left field in his transition, but you know, Rusty Kuntz, we talked to him a couple of spring trainings ago, and the conversation was specifically about Alex Gordon and what he did. And there was one thing I asked him about, you know, playing outfield. What's the thing that you can't teach? And he said the thing that he can't teach somebody is their recognition of sort of depth perception. Yeah. He can teach them routes. He can teach them angles. You can teach some of those things. You can teach some of the techniques in throwing from outfield and, you know, cutoff man, throwing through the cutoff man, some of those things that you learn in Little League. But if you haven't played the outfield in a long time, you still need to have some refreshers. But that depth perception and where the ball is going to go off the bat. And he said Alex Gordon just had that natural instinct, knew where the ball was going to be and where it was going to land when it was hit. So his routes were brilliant. I bring that up and ask you, you know, MJ Melendez said that the second the season got over last year, all he's done is outfield work, routes, angles, all of that stuff. That transition to outfield, how difficult is that? You played outfield in your career from somebody who's been a catcher to now playing the outfield. Is it realistic to think that MJ Melendez can improve from him being a DH playing left field and playing right field last year to a guy who can just simply play a representative left field if his bat, you know, plays near what it was at the second half of the season? Or is that asking too much for a guy who's been a catcher for so long to then learn the outfield position at the major league level?
Well, again, you're a professional athlete, right? I mean, if you're a professional athlete and you can catch and play other places, then you can get better. Now, there's going to be a limit to MJ Melendez, and it's unfair to compare him or anybody else to Alex Gordon.
For sure.
Alex Gordon defensively will go down in history as the greatest left fielder for the Royals ever. And he's got a lot of hardware to show for that. So I'm really safe in saying that. You know, that's a no-brainer. And he did have those instincts, but he worked harder than, I mean, you know, I was with Alex in fantasy camp this past November, and he's still in playing shape. I mean, he still looks like, oh, my gosh, it's like bounce a quarter off his stomach and shoot it across the room and stick in the wall kind of in shape. I mean, it's amazing. So that's what MJ Melendez should be doing, is having that work ethic, because that's his route to stay in the big leagues. He does not have an infield position. He is not an everyday major league catcher. He would be an emergency catcher, and that's great to have, but the Royals haven't needed that. And so it's going to be outfield. And even if he's a great outfielder, he's also going to have to hit as well. So it's good that he's doing it. Time will tell. And it's great to do that, but Kauffman Stadium is Kauffman Stadium. He's got to put that work in Kauffman Stadium during the season, early work, because you can go to wherever his home is. You can go to a different place, indoor, outdoor, in the winter, go play winter ball. That's fine. But unless you're in Kauffman Stadium with those rounded angles and the way it's played, then it's not going to be the exact same. So right field is different from left field, is different from center field. You can be a good athlete, but those positions are different. It's not Little League where if you're just an athlete, you can play them all. And it's just going to be a wait and see. I know he's got good work ethic, but the bottom line is you have to be able to play at Kauffman Stadium. You have to keep the work up. And he's going to, even though we're talking about the defensive side of it, he's still going to have to hit, because left field is not a position where you can be incredible and hit 205. Mm-hmm. It's not going to work that way. Only because if you don't have any better option, okay. But the Royals have better options this year, and so he's going to have to keep that work ethic up and play those angles, and we'll see if it's paid off or not.
Yeah, the thing that you brought up when, we know Isbell's going to play center, Renfroe's going to play right, assuming health. So there you go. You got 2/3 of your outfield taken care of. And if MJ Melendez were to struggle, it's not just who else are we going to put in the lineup? You know, they made the trade for Velasquez, although he hasn't looked good down in spring training, so far. But that's an option at left field. Drew Waters can play all three outfield positions, maybe not the highest level playing all three outfield positions, but it's another option that's there of somebody that you feel like has some of those traits. Garrett Hampson, you mentioned him as well, that if MJ Melendez struggles, there's some options to go to that you don't feel like, you're going down into AAA and bringing up a guy who just isn't prepared to play at this level, that you don't have to just write in MJ Melendez. And I wonder how much, not even wonder, I know, we know how much he's got to be aware of that his job isn't guaranteed to him in left field, which is one of the reasons why maybe it's pride and other things to go out and get better at left field. He's also swinging the bat pretty well in spring training. And I know that we've talked about how much we can look at those numbers and how much they really matter. But can that be maybe a catapult to him starting the season a little bit better than where last year he started it so terribly and it took over his entire first half of the season? And he talked about the defense being on his mind and all of that stuff. But it's a good point that there are other options that are there. And I think that's where some of the excitement comes, to where it's not that I think this team is going to go and win a series in the postseason, but are they built to win over 162? They've got depth. They've got other answers. They've got guys who have played with the third deck on a stadium before, and they know what that's like, that they can go to different people, that whether that be the starting staff, the bullpen, or the guys that are playing in the dirt and in the grass.
And the one thing that we're also not really talking about, but we need to, with MJ Melendez is, to this point in his young career, he's been given opportunity after opportunity, and they've accepted, he can drive the ball and he's going to be in there. Maybe they don't have as many options, or he's young and we want him as part of our future. And that's fine. That's great. But those days are about over. So we now are going to find out, can MJ Melendez play and succeed under pressure? Is he going to look behind him knowing that there's people waiting in the wings, more than one option that can take his job? Or can he just focus on what he's doing, make his adjustments, not worry? Because who of us, whether it's sports, athletics, or any part in life, when we're under pressure, the people that succeed the most are the ones that don't look around and that focus on what they're doing, learn from their mistakes, continue to grow, but do it without fear. And not every big leaguer, many big leaguers are talented to play this game, but not that same amount have the mental ability or the emotional ability to perform under pressure and not fear, what if I lose my job? Because then that's when they press and they tighten up or make impulsive decisions that are wrong or things like that. That's what we haven't seen about MJ Melendez yet, and this year we're going to see it.
Les Norman is our guest, breaking the norm as we talk some Royals baseball here. I did want to talk to you about Vinny Pasquantino before we move on to a couple of pieces in the starting staff. He's talking about that his shoulder feeling the healthiest it's been in a couple of years. That he didn't realize what was going on with his shoulder until he needed that surgery when he tore it on a swing and a miss. The between the ears part of it is, at this point, 12 games in spring training and going through, the off-season workouts and getting the full clearance from doctors and all of that stuff as the steps you go through in recovering from a surgery, whether it's your leg or, it's your right shoulder. Do you think he would be, in a general timetable, past the between the ears and just letting it fly, that, there's no worry about a down and in pitch, that he can swing hard at it and come over the top of it, miss it, and not feel like, there goes my shoulder again, which is ultimately what happened with him last year. At what point does that happen? Is he past it? And is this one of those to where we're ready to see maybe Vinny Pasquantino take a step forward from what he was doing even last year and the year before, since he's talking about that shoulder and how good it feels?
I think it's a great point with most major league players. But I think with Vinny Pasquantino, I think that in the off season when he was able, he posted a lot on social media, his workouts and him hitting. And I wanted to watch his first at bat of spring training very closely just to see how he would respond.
Mm-hmm.
And he made an out, but he made a really hard, like loud ground out to where it was like, okay, Vinny's back. Now, whether he hits 200 or 700 or anywhere in between in spring training, to me doesn't matter. Is he letting go of the bat? Like, is he letting it fly and taking his aggressive swings on good pitches as he gets back into at-bats and relearning his zone because it's been a long time? But with Vinny Pasquantino, I'm not worried about that. The only thing I would concern myself is that if he does tweak something, is he going to fight through it and not tell anybody because he just wants to be on the field and he's that type of leader and that type of guy? But I don't worry about Pasquatch being concerned about whether he can let it fly or not. I think in the rehab process, and once he got the okay to go 100%, I think he's going 100%. I'm thankful he's not an outfielder where he'd dive and stretch that arm out, or a pitcher where he would be taxing it every fourth and fifth day, or a bullpen every second or third day. So if there's got to be a position, it's hitting and or first base, DH. And so I don't worry about him, and I don't think he's worried.
Visiting with Les Norman, I mentioned my glass half full, the trying to find the optimist approach as much as possible. But there's also a general, worry that comes along with almost everything, especially when it comes to injuries for me. When I watch the Chiefs game, every time Patrick Mahomes gets hit and the camera leaves Mahomes, I'm waiting for them to show Mahomes is perfectly fine. Every single time. It's weird. I get it. When he's in the pocket, he throws it and it's clean, no big deal. But when he runs and throws the ball and he's getting hit and the camera pans somewhere else, I'm like, yeah, but okay, great, 40-yard pass, but is Mahomes okay? So it's constantly like that. So I have that in the back of my mind because there's a worry with injuries, and you just simply don't want that. I wish in sports we can do like Madden and just turn off injuries. Just see what happens for a season, Turn off injuries and see what happens. I bring that up because there is the little, the devil on one shoulder, the angel on the other of Cole Ragans. And I am so excited and pumped for what Cole Ragans can be for this team this year. And he's thrown 5 innings so far, 2 starts down in spring training, but 5 innings. He's allowed 5 base runners. He struck out 8. But the little devil that's like, hey, don't get too excited is, he hits 101 on the radar gun. And typically it'd be like, oh, hell yeah. Look, this guy, his stuff is ridiculous. And MLB, I can't remember what it was, it said he's a left-handed DeGrom, his stuff. And it wasn't a guy with the Royals organization. It was somebody outside the organization. It was like, no, this guy's stuff is just nasty. Is there a level of concern for you that he's pumping it in there at 101 in spring training when it's like, let's wait till late March and April? You don't need to get up to 101. Or is there no concern with you because the staff, the trainers, all of that would ramp him down if there was any concern there with that elbow, and he's already gone under the knife with that before?
Jason, have you ever gotten a gift that's so good that you didn't expect it, and yet you kind of hung on to it and protected it, like when you were a kid with a toy or something like that?
Yeah, I know exactly. It was my relationship with you.
Yeah. Whoa, boy. Wow. Yeah. Let's cut to commercial. I want to clip that one.
It was a gift and totally unexpected, but it has been life-changing.
That keeps on giving the whole year.
That it is, Edward.
Right. And so I think that's what the Royals have found in a guy like Cole Ragans. So, yes, I think that they would definitely back him off if they thought he was doing too much. I don't think that you can see by the way his stuff is working, and for me, the way he throws, it's not like Bubich with this wild arms and legs or the old Tim Lincecum style of pitching. I mean,
remember Leo Nunez?
Yeah, yeah.
It felt like his whole body was being thrown to the plate just to get it up to like 94, 95.
Absolutely. And so I feel like there's a lot less effort and a lot more efficiency in Cole Ragans' mechanics and his delivery. And, they're watching that closely. And that gift that the Royals have in him, they're not going to do anything to risk that. Yeah. And so I'm not concerned. I'm not worried in any way. I'm excited. And, again, I'm not big on, all of my generation, both the couple years with the Royals and then before and after, right around that time, the Royals always have had pretty good spring training records, and it doesn't always translate.
I know.
So, there's not a concern there for me. If I have to get really excited about anything, it's the strikeouts from our pitchers in spring training compared with consistency. Because hitters, the good hitters, the everyday hitters are going to catch up. They know they're not worried about strikeouts right now. People, the Royals are hitters. The Royals are facing in the AL Central or just in the AL down there, or whatever it may be, or have been any that they're going to compete against. The starters, they know that. Well, I'm behind right now, but I'm not going to try to press because then I'm going to start the season in a slump because I'm going to start opening up or pulling off or all those things. So it's not just the strikeouts that excite me. It's the strikeouts and the consistency of strikeouts that are happening. Guys hitting their spots, guys' velocity being consistent. You know, I know that we are 3 weeks away, but Cole Reagans and the rest of that starting rotation, they're going to want to be ready. They're not going to want to spend end of March or all of April trying to work themselves back up because that's when you have a 10-25 first 35 games. And this is not that Royals team. They don't have an expectation of 100 losses. They have an expectation to win now. So that excites me. And then just the consistency of the solid contact with the majority of the Royals hitters in spring training as well. That's an exciting thing. I don't care about batting averages. I think today Michael Garcia's hitting 450, 455. Big deal. Just hit 280, play a great third base, drive in some runs, bunt, move runners over, be a great leadoff hitter. We're getting more out of you than we can expect. So not worried about Cole Reagans, not worried about this rotation right now, not worried about the hitters at all.
Yeah, the projected starting five in there, little less than 20 innings pitched so far. They've got 24 Ks and 5 walks. Again, spring training.
Yeah,
but to your point. But to your point, what you're talking about in that point. Les Norman, breaking the norm, our guest here. Les, appreciate it, brother, and looking forward to our weekly conversation starting in a couple of weeks when we are breaking down baseball games and what we're seeing actually on the field in the season, and hopefully a season-long pennant chase and or at least a playoff and scoreboard watching throughout the year. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, let's do this in October, man.
Let's do it. Heck yeah. Let's do it during training camp for the Chiefs. How about that?
I love it. Good call, buddy.
Les, you're the man. Appreciate it, brother.
You got it, man. We'll see you.
Absolutely. There's Les Norman, breaking the norm. Great stuff from him. And, man, I can't wait till we get those conversations started in a couple of weeks of just weekly with Les. I always feel better when I'm talking. Maybe there was a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, but it wasn't much when he said, you ever get a gift that you just didn't expect and it sort of changed your life? Yeah, Les, you. We'll take a time out. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. But before we do, how about this? How about the KC Auto Show coming up on next week, Thursday through Sunday at Bartle Hall. And we've got some tickets to give away. How will we give away these tickets? Let's do this. Let's do caller number 7 and 8. Here's why. Les wore number 16 with the Royals, so 8 plus 8 is 16, and he wore 25. And 5 and 2 equals 7. Unless, Dylan, you want to go caller 16 and 25. Or caller 7 and 8 to win a pair of tickets.
Yeah, why not do 50 and 70? Why
not? Callers number 7 and 8, you get a pair of tickets to the KC Auto Show that's coming up next weekend at Bartle Hall. We'll take a time out. 913-381-0810 is the phone number, by the way. 913-381-0810. Tickets to the Auto Show. Give us a call right now. We'll take a time out, come back. We'll talk a little Chiefs football next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. 913-912-4810 is the text line. 913-912-4810 text line to be a part of the show, part of the conversation. We've talked a lot about Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed for obvious reasons. Coming up on Monday is the negotiation period that opens up in the NFL for these free agents, and Chris Jones certainly will get a lot of attention, and he'll get some money thrown his way, and the Chiefs have until then really to get something figured out with Chris Jones before I think the $30 million a year will be on the table for him, and then he'll have that decision to make. Of course, probably knows that is an option, an opportunity, a possibility, and maybe he's waiting until getting the full picture before deciding what he wants to do. So we've talked a lot about Chris Jones. We've talked a lot about L'Jarius Sneed. We've talked tons of wide receivers. But the other thing that happens on Monday, while the Chiefs are figuring out Chris Jones, it cannot and definitely is not their only priority, at least to follow and watch, because some of the names that we talked about this year that were players that you go, man, where would the Chiefs have been if they didn't have insert name here? Like Drue Tranquill, like Mike Edwards, like throwing Charles Omenihu, even though he's not a free agent. And like Mike Dana, even though he wasn't a free agent signing last year, he's been a part of the Chiefs for 4 years. And those are the guys that I do wonder where the priorities come in for the Chiefs. Because a lot of us have been on record and have talked about how a priority for the Chiefs to go out and sign a Drue Tranquill. And the question's going to be, and one of the reasons why I am on the preferential side of signing Chris Jones and trading L'Jarius Sneed. Now, with the $9 million the Chiefs have under the salary cap right now, that they have $9 million of cap space, that includes the $20 million tag that they are carrying with L'Jarius Sneed. So you trade L'Jarius Sneed, that money comes off the books. And it gives you more room to go and sign some guys. And that's one of the reasons why, to me, it's preferable to trade L'Jarius Sneed is if you can get a second-round draft pick, maybe 2/3, it depends on what it is. Maybe you only get a third-rounder, and you'd rather have it this year as opposed to going into the free agent formula of getting a comp pick next year in the 2025 draft. Okay, well, it'll probably be better than the draft pick you trade for this year would be better than a comp pick next year. Not just that it's next year, that the comp pick would be later on in the draft. It'd be after the third round, even if you got a high level of a comp pick, even if that got you to the formula to the third rounder. So I'm in favor of doing that, and also that $20 million because I want them. I don't know what it's going to cost. I would love for them to bring back Mike Dana. That's not a name that people have talked much about. Like, we've talked so much about Drue Tranquill and then Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. We've talked wide receivers. We've talked tackle. But defensive line, what Mike Dana has done with this team, I don't know how valuable Mike Dana will be to another squad. I think there's monetarily, Chris Jones is going to get more money somewhere else than he would get in Kansas City. Will Mike Dana get more somewhere else than he'll get with the Chiefs? Because it can't just simply be, well, you get the championship winning boost for your free agent dollars. Okay, well then, why didn't DeMarcus Robinson go and sign after his 4th year in the NFL? He came back on a 1-year deal. Why didn't Derek Nottie go anywhere after his 4th season in the NFL? He came back on a 1-year deal. I'm not saying that Mike Dana is in that particular category, but I do wonder how many other teams are going to look at it and go, boom, let's go get Mike Dana. Because Drue Tranquill was a guy that we don't feel was appreciated in L.A. And he obviously doesn't feel he was appreciated in L.A. because they said thanks, but no thanks. And the Chiefs said, well, hold on. Well, we didn't know Drue Tranquill was available because, as the story goes, the agent's reaching out to the Chiefs and saying, hey, would you be interested in Drue Tranquill? Well, hell yeah, would be interested in Drue Tranquill, but okay, what's he looking at? Is he available? All that stuff. Okay, so they signed Drue Tranquill. I don't think the Chiefs view Mike Dana that way. So you would have to have a team that would look at it and go, all right, we're going to go out and get Mike Dana to come in and be rotational for us, but we're going to give him money that's going to be more than what the Chiefs would offer him to stay in Kansas City, to also be a rotational defensive end. Nobody's giving Mike Dana a job to be a starting defensive end. I can't imagine that being the case. And it is nothing against Mike Dana. It's just simply reality. He's been a really good player. He can move inside. He can play outside when need be. I think there's value in Mike Dana. Those are the players that it makes it tougher to bring back and put on the field in a Chiefs uniform if you have Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. It makes it tougher, even with Chris Jones alone and trading L'Jarius Sneed. But the priorities outside of these two bigger names, and who do you put out there, on the field with Rashee Rice? Who are you putting out there to protect Patrick Mahomes' blind side if Donovan Smith isn't brought back? If it's not just simply you put Wanya Morris over there, or if it's not you're going to move Jawan Taylor, the original plan last year for about 6 weeks of Jawan Taylor playing left tackle, and then Lucas Niang or Prince Tega Winogo, or now Wanya Morris playing the right side. All of those sort of debates and conversations that have taken place, and the value that's there in drafting somebody versus free agents versus trades. Part of the Chiefs winning the championship last year was a Mike Dana, Drew Tranquill, Mike Edwards. Brian Cook got injured, and that sucks. But if Brian Cook got injured and then your next man up was Deion Bush, I don't know. He was awesome in the one rep, when he had to come in and play and intercepted Lamar Jackson. That was fantastic. So it's not like he didn't make an impact at all this year. But you also, if you're playing Deion Bush in that role instead of Mike Edwards, you're taking him off special teams. And we've talked about that with, Miami? And we talked about it really with Buffalo. How injured Buffalo was on the defense in that they were bringing guys who are primarily special teams players, and now they're starting. So you've got lesser players that are out there playing against the Chiefs offense and lesser players that are on the special teams. You start to set yourself back. Chiefs still have to fill out the 53. Do they feel like somebody on the defensive line is ready to step up in Mike Dana's role? I don't know, because Omenihu is also going to start the year on the PUP list, at least training camp. He says he's, going to be ready, or whatever the tweet was about, people doubting him or something along those lines. Just sort of, in general, sort of the way that he was presenting, or people know more about my timeline. I can't remember what it was, but it was a pushback on anybody that thought he was going to start the season and not play week one. Well, I should say he's going to start start training camp on the PUP list. I think he's going to start the year and miss a couple of games. I mean, what, a 9-month timetable? And 9 months after his injury would be September. So it's going to be difficult. I mean, Adrian Peterson, returned, and he was awesome in 7 months. And that's a guy who is built like the Terminator, apparently. I don't know that Omenihu is that guy. So maybe he is. Maybe he returns. But still, you're looking at a defensive line that has next to nobody on it. Just a couple of players that are there. Karlaftis and FAU and Omenihu. But guys that we think are going to be healthy and ready to go as it stands right now for week one, there's a couple players. So Mike Dana is valuable. Drew Tranquill coming back we know is valuable. Mike Edwards is valuable. Those are players that, by the way, on Monday, we'll start talking with other teams if the Chiefs don't have something figured out. And what I don't want to see happen, and I do think this is something that took place last year, is that the Chiefs went into the offseason with the idea, and I think the plan was to extend Chris Jones, lessen that cap hit, and go and make other moves. That it didn't happen. And we know how long it went and how bad it was, and it went into week one of the regular season until he said, all right, let's figure this thing out. I want to be out there with my brothers. The worst thing to me would be you're spending all this time and allocating the money to Chris Jones right now, and then Chris Jones says, you know what, I'm going to sign somewhere else, but then it's also Dana and Tranquill and Edwards, et cetera, are also signing elsewhere. It's like, all right, well, now you're bringing in somebody else instead of somebody you know. And I'd rather the Chiefs bring back a Tranquill and a Dana and an Edwards because we've seen what they can do. We've seen the impact they can make. And that's where a lot of this is in Chris Jones' court. They won a Super Bowl last year. Chris Jones was a big part of it. But if the wide receivers ended up being the reason why they didn't, I think there could have been some unhappy feelings with Chris Jones and how he handled the whole thing. Because, again, the plan was not just to go and keep Chris Jones's cap number that the entire offseason and limit their ability to go and sign another wide receiver like a DeAndre Hopkins or something like that. The good news is that won't happen this offseason. It will not go into July because we'll find out Monday. We'll find out a week from today when the league year opens. A week from today at what? 2 o'clock Central Time is when free agency starts. So this time next week, we'll already have a good, decent amount of information on, where guys are going to be, who's going to be signing, etc., different places. We'll know that. So it's not going to last into the summer. We will have some sort of an answer probably less than 7 days from now. But we haven't talked really about other pieces of this team that meant a lot to the championship. Yes, Chris Jones was a big piece. L'Jarius Sneed was a big piece. And I want for them to bring back Chris Jones. But I also don't want to look at this team in training camp and go, man, look at all of those valuable depth pieces that are somewhere else. We'll see what they end up doing. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Dylan Michaels. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up at the top of the 1 o'clock hour in the next hour until the end of the show. KSHB 41 Sports Director, presented by Empower Payments. 913-912-4810. 913-912-4810 is the text line. A couple of clips that we'll play with in the hour with Mick Schaefer. A little bit from The Dynasty that's being played on Apple TV. Tyreek Hill as well. There is a clip out there from Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce, and their podcast of them sort of talking about the retirement. There's a report that the Vikings have had trade talks with the Chiefs about L'Jarius Sneed. It's also out there. Again, we've talked a ton about L'Jarius Sneed. We talked a ton about Chris Jones. And if you're curious, Minnesota has pick number 42, not 52, pick number 42 in the upcoming draft in the second round. They would also then have, actually they traded one of their picks to Detroit with the Hawkinson thing that we had talked about yesterday with, so they actually don't have a third rounder. So yeah, if Minnesota's going to be in a conversation with the Chiefs, it'll have to be for that pick number 42. Because I don't think the Chiefs are going to sit back and wait for pick number 109 for L'Jarius Sneed. Can't imagine that would be the case. So don't think that would happen. So we'll talk about some of those things with Mick Schaefer coming up in the 1 o'clock. And of course, I mean, handshake lines. I mean, come on. Now, there is a video of the handshake line in Manhattan, and if you missed that in the previous, we'll play the clips again as well. How do you, Dylan? How do you do it when you're answering the phones? Because the texter said, "Man, I was caller number 6, so close." Do you just say, caller number 5, caller number 6, congrats, you're caller number 7, congrats, you're caller number 8?
Yeah, it's more of a congratulations to the winners, and then just, hey, you're this number, thanks for playing. I said, thanks for playing.
Drake will sometimes go, so close, caller number 6. Sorry about that.
I can't twist the knife. I'm not going to twist the knife like that, no.
Oh, sorry about that. You were caller number 7. We're looking for caller number 8. Darn it. So close. We already have people ringing in, so you're not going to win. But so close, dude. I almost answered your call next.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do that to him.
You were 1/1000th of a second away of pressing dial from you actually winning, but enjoy being close. Also, the same texter says, remember when it was found out that Leo Nunez was not actually Leo Nunez? I forgot about that. It's a lot of things that we forget about at certain times of Royals baseball in the past. Yeah.
A lot of forgettable moments.
All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We will talk with Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports Director, presented by Empower Payments. More Zone right after this.
quality, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
Hanging out on a Wednesday edition of The Zone. Jason Anderson, Mick Schaefer, Dylan Michaels, Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports Director. Presented by Empower Payments. Hanging out with us here on this Wednesday. Mick, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm good.
I'm good.
Good. It's a nice day out. All that stuff.
No, it is pretty. It is pretty outside.
We're 1 day away from basketball starting up for like a good week and a half plus out at T-Mobile Center.
That's right. Yep. We will have the women's Big 12 tournament going on tomorrow.
Do you like that? I like it.
I love
it. And it's going to spill over, right? On Tuesday, we're going to have 2 men's games and the women's championship, right?
11:30 and 2. And I had mentioned this earlier in the show. Could be a good news, bad news, but a fun purple day on Tuesday that the Cats could play the 11:30 or 2 o'clock game, and then the Cats could play the 8 o'clock game in the women's side. I mean, they're the 3 seed, or they're the 3 seed for the tournament, so they could obviously be playing on Tuesday night. So that'd be wouldn't be great news on the men's side, but it would be the warm-up to the main dish of the women's championship at T-Mobile. But there's certainly a possibility of that, and that'd be great for downtown. A lot of Cat fans that would be there for. It'd be better if they were the 2 o'clock game, because then 2 o'clock done at like 4:15. Well, yeah, I guess it would start right around 2 because they already have the half hour built in with the 11:30 start on the first one, and then go and hang out for a little bit, then head back into T-Mobile and watch the Glenn Twins and Aoka Lee and K-State try to win the Big 12 championship.
It'll be a good litmus test because in the past they've had both going at the same time, but at 2 different venues and not overly close to each other, right? To where, okay, is this going to be better? One venue right next to the P&L and everything, but we're going to spread it out over 2 weeks. So we'll see. I love it.
Absolutely.
Which way works?
It looks like the weather.
I like it too. It's we're spreading out the coverage because a lot of times on those Fridays,
you're right.
I mean, there's so many games we're trying to get to and get highlights of.
When you actually have more to do for your job, when you've got to cover all those different things.
I like less to do for my job. That's
to then
it.
Put it all into 3 minutes. When I've got 4 hours, but less coverage in 4 hours.
And usually it's not the case this year, but usually Kansas and Missouri high school state championships are that same weekend as well. Kansas is doing it this week. The bigger class, or all the classes in the Missouri bigger classes, are next weekend. So that's spread out as well.
Yeah.
So.
Barstow last night, that was unfortunate.
But
we were going to head to the next game. Well, we were going to go to the next game.
Yeah.
If they ended up winning. So
that was going to be that was their sectional game. So that was to get to the quarterfinals last night.
Yeah. What are you going to do? It happens. But yeah, so all that's going on, and
then right after that, the wrestling guys are going to be in town.
That's right. The Mizzou women's softball is taking on UMKC, right? Today
I'll take your word for it. I'm overloaded.
Sure
that's
it is.
That's,
I get
the
it.
next thing in my queue. Okay,
I totally understand all the stuff that you've got going on, and next week's downtown is just going to be crazy. It's going to be fun as well. And again, the weather, it looks like it might be some rain tomorrow and Friday, but after that, it looks like it's just going to be gorgeous around Kansas City.
Right, and then we're just opening it up to new teams now, right? new fan bases and all that stuff.
That's right. Yeah, welcome all of the the UCFs, Florida. Come enjoy Florida weather without all the bugs. 68 degrees. Not right now. The bugs will be here in the summer.
So in the men's, you have the double bye, right? It's going to be just like SEC's been doing.
That's right.
But KU's not. They'll just be in 1 bye. They're the 6th seed right now.
Yeah, they could be the 4 seed. Huge. They wouldn't have to play on Wednesday. They would just play on Thursday, and then of course if they won Friday and Saturday. But yeah, you're talking about playing Thursday at 11:30 in the morning, and then maybe Thursday at 11:30, and then Friday probably against Houston.
Yeah.
If you take that route, as opposed to playing Thursday at 11:30 in the morning and then Houston that next night. So yeah, it's a big weekend to see what happens with BYU. That's got Oklahoma State at home this weekend, and Texas Tech that has a home game against Baylor on Saturday. Those will be the teams that are right there for KU being a 4 or a 6 is right there with BYU, Texas Tech, and KU. And I'm assuming KU loses to Houston in that sort of math of whether they're the 4, the 5, or the 6.
I mean, if it'd be a nice sign of improvement if they went on the road and beat the best team in the conference and maybe the best team in the nation. One they've already beaten, obviously, but this has been a very different team inside and outside of Allen Fieldhouse. So we'll see.
Can you play the clip from Bill Self, please, Dylan? And I want to preface this by there is video from the handshake in Manhattan after the K-State and KU game, where certainly looked like there were a couple of flybys there with Jerome Tang and Bill Self in Manhattan.
In Manhattan looked like a flyby?
Both of them sort of looked like just, how you doing? And then Jerome Tang actually stopped and talked to Curtis
I've heard all this. I haven't seen
video of last night.
Yeah.
I'll show you while Bill Self's talking, because you've heard it.
Yes.
While Bill Self's talking, I'll show you video of the one in Manhattan, but there's no video of last night so far. But here's Bill Self last night. He was asked about, did something happen in the handshake line postgame?
No, he just didn't want to shake hands, or he just did a flyby. That's fine. That's fine.
Hunter had mentioned, Hunter had mentioned how it stuck with him how the K-State game went over in Manhattan. It stuck with him how they celebrated a little more than he thought they would. You see that kind of stick with the team in this game, especially since it's a rivalry game?
Yeah, that stuff, the celebration and going in the stands, and so we're used to that. So that's not. I will say this: when we got our ass kicked there, we shook everyone's hand and did a handshake line and all that stuff. So I guess it was different here today. But the whole thing is that's what happens with rivalries. I mean that's what happens with rivalries, and if it didn't stick with them, then they probably shouldn't be playing here. Because that's you always want to be your rival.
Couple things with that. First of all, Dylan and I talked about this. If you've ever been in a relationship, you know the answer of, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I don't think it's fine. I'm going to guess that it's not fine. And eventually he was asked another question, and it turned out it wasn't fine. We got our ass kicked there. We had a handshake line. We shook everybody's hand and everything. And
so it sounds like maybe not all of the K-State contingent was there to shake all of the KU contingent.
Jerome Tang shook, from what the video is there, is
from last night.
From last night. They showed from behind the benches, the last shot for K-State goes up, the clock hits 0, they start walking, and then it immediately switches camera angle to the other side of the court to a one shot of Hunter Dickinson, who's our player of the game, is Hunter Dickinson, and it stayed on Hunter Dickinson for the entire handshake line. And then here comes Jerome Tang, shaking Hunter Dickinson's hand, shaking DeJuan Harris's hand, and then peeling off and going to the locker room, and they were at the end there. So I'm guessing Jerome Tang shook everybody's hand.
At least Jerome Tang. That's what I'm saying. But okay,
but he was saying
the assistants and the coaches maybe not.
I have no idea. But he said Jerome Tang gave a little flyby, and when we got our ass kicked there in Manhattan in overtime by 5 points, but we stayed and shook everybody's hand, and I guess it's different here. In Manhattan, the video that's out there is a little flyby.
That's
by
a
both,
flyby as well.
Flyby by both coaches.
So I'm wondering if he's, mischaracterizing what happened, or if there's more involved, like I said, with the rest of the both teams and shaking hands and all that stuff. But yeah, both of those that was a blow by as well. And it's not a lot of times. Most of the time, you see the coaches stop, a little pat on the chest, right, little
or there's
the shoulder,
or there's
whatever,
a frustration,
like quick
that might
little
be
deal,
there.
like, hey, I'll talk to you after the game. Yeah.
Yep.
These are just like, we have to do this.
I've called it ack-cock.
Of course you have.
Always keep camera on coaches in the handshake line.
They usually do.
I just took the handshake line off of it because that's too long. Ack-cock is fine.
Especially in a blowout game like that, you usually have almost every time you have somebody stationed mid-court, half-court for the coaches.
Somebody's got video, just like there was an overhead shot
These
of
amateurs
Filipowski.
at ESPN, when are they going to get it right?
There was overhead shot of Filipowski, getting body slammed off
There's
the
something
second row.
somewhere. Yeah.
There's video out there somewhere, and I'd love to see it if it looks anything like it did in Manhattan earlier this year when there was a blow-by. I just know this, Mick. I'm just so glad there are handshake lines.
Oh, my God. I forgot about this.
I am so happy
Yes,
that we
I
can,
am too.
We
They're
can learn
good
about
to be-
sportsmanship.
yes.
Well, clearly they're not good sportsmanship because that was a flyby. That handshake was, while there was a
It's better
handshake
than
line.
not shaking.
There was a handshake
A blow
line.
by is better than not shaking.
It wasn't a good enough handshake line. It was a handshake line, but not good enough
I love
of a handshake
your guys'
line.
take. You and Corey, remember when you said, like, well, kids should do it. Kids should have to do it,
I
but
said I
adults
don't even care.
shouldn't.
No, I don't. My point is, I don't know that kids should do it because I find it hilarious that it's like,
Yeah.
For an hour,
good sport. It's just a game. It's just a game.
For an hour and a half, we're screaming at the official, "You suck, Blue. That's a strike. You're terrible." Coach is getting thrown out of the game, and then at the better shake that kid's hand. Show good sportsmanship, son.
Yes.
What? You're not shaking that kid's hand. Show good sportsmanship. Well, Dad, you just punched the.
Okay, that's an
the
exaggeration.
Umpire. What?
That
No,
is,
people have punched umpires before.
Yes, so that is we're going to say everybody does it every game. No, I get it. No, that's you know what? People who don't shake hands and handshake, they turn out to be a-holes on social media, right? That's what happens. Okay, they serve time. All right.
What about
I don't think there's
handshakes?
anything wrong with sportsmanship. There's nothing wrong with being civil in society, and that is a great example right there. It's just a game.
I don't think
is
there's
just a game.
I'm with you on the. I don't think there's anything wrong with being civil in society. I don't know that.
I would say
equals the
beyond
other.
that, it's a tenet. It's a mainstay. It is a tent pole of society.
Well, I just think like baseball. Rolled by like an army of steamrollers, was erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again, or America was, and baseball was a sign of our past and all of that stuff. It was, oh wait, no, that's right. They don't shake hands in baseball. Okay, weird.
Yeah, and they fight all the time.
It's weird. I don't know.
They fight all the time.
It's baseball was America's pastime, and they shake hands with themselves.
Hockey doesn't do it unless it's the playoffs, right?
I know.
And they fight all the time.
Well, it's like, what's good sportsmanship? Because in football,
good sportsmanship is shaking hands and not fighting.
The quarterbacks are expected to shake hands, but then that's it. If you walk out and shake the quarterback's hand and then leave, you did your job. You did enough as a quarterback.
That's like
but if you
over
leave, you're a
100
bad
dudes,
sport.
right?
But if
And
you
this
leave,
is
you're a bad
easier.
sport. If you don't go shake the other quarterback's hands, you're a crybaby. You shake the other quarterback's
absolutely.
hands, but you're mad
Be a
about
grown-up.
But you're mad about an official's call on Kadarius Toney. You're also a crybaby.
Both can exist. Yes, you can be upset at a call and still afterward be all right. And guess what? Say nice things to the umpire and the referees, too.
No, I refuse to do that. I want
Apparently
my son to
not.
learn about sportsmanship just by shaking other kids' hands while I scream at the umpire and the referee
That
about
is such a straw man. This
not.
is so dumb.
It's
this
not.
is so dumb.
It's not a straw man.
It
It's
is
an umpire and a referee that
absolutely.
we're berating throughout the game. And
We're
then-
not berating. You can say something. You
No,
can
you can't.
disagree with somebody,
Be a
and it
good sport.
happens all the time.
Sportsmanship.
And you
accept the calls by the officials.
The fringe
Human error.
of youth sports.
Human
you
error.
don't have to paint the entire body of that. Yeah. That's
I'm not going to paint the entire body of America based on shaking hands or not. So, after a game.
I don't even know what that
I
means.
teach my son to just stand over by me. Don't even go out there, sons.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, I
obviously
mean,
they-
99.9% of the time, handshake lines are just great, and so you see one like, oh, let's sit them all out. No more, because this one thing happened.
Oh, there's other
That's
ones.
not how I work.
There's youth handshake lines that happen. Kids spitting on their hands and things like that. Happened back in the day to us. There have been, some fights.
Where
that have
did you
taken
grow
place.
up playing sports in
Here?
prison?
Yes.
Okay.
No blood, no foul.
I guess so. Yeah, you're going to different games than I am, I guess.
You never had one kid ever spit on the hand and they were going through the handshake line?
No, not that I know of.
Where'd you grow
Maybe.
up playing sports?
In Niceville.
Oh.
Niceville, Kansas. Okay? Everything's fine. Yes, you could hate it.
Niceville,
Yeah,
Kansas.
it's a great lesson, right? You
Yeah,
can
it's
not
fine.
like somebody
Absolutely.
on the field or how they play or
Yeah.
whatever, but in the end, you're all like human beings, and you can be civil and shake somebody's hand and
You
say,
and I agree with
"This
that.
is just a game."
You and I agree
it's
with
just
that.
a game.
I totally agree with that with the kids. I don't
But
think the fabric of our
we
society.
should think the adults, the kids should act more mature than the adults. That's just a wild argument to me.
No, that's sort of the point.
I
though.
need Soren to call him.
Like, I don't-
He's a better arguer than me, and he's on my side on this thing.
No, I just think the fabric of our society is not going away if we don't
Nobody
shake
said
hands.
that. Nobody said that.
Well,
It
we're
just-
not teaching the kids about good sportsmanship.
It's
They're all
not-
going to be
it's
jerks on
hot or
Twitter.
cold.
They're all going to be jerks on Twitter if we don't shake hands. you know?
I bet it lead one thing leads to another. Yeah,
I don't know about that.
If
I
you're
don't
taught
know.
good sportsmanship in one area of life, you will most likely carry it to others.
You can teach good sportsmanship without then saying, okay, well, now you have to go out and shake the hands of the opponents every single time. Or
That's
even,
like the forefront of good sportsmanship, right?
No.
Respecting the opponent and the officials and the referees. That's like the number one thing of good sportsmanship. You can't just
you
be
don't
good
shake the
sports with
referee's
your own
hand,
hand.
but you don't shake the referee's hand.
Absolutely,
So
guys do all the time. They bump
They're not-
before the game. The
No,
starting
but-
lineup guys, they come out.
Oh, it's
they,
easy to
they
do
dab
before the
their-
game.
afterward, they say
Jerome
it's all
Tang
the
and Bill
time.
Self love each other before the game.
Well,
they're
and they
all
see-
chuckles and everything. They're all ha-has and chuckles. After the game, we get flybys because they're mad. That's the good sportsmanship. Nobody.
good. They're being good sports.
The referees aren't in a handshake line.
No, but they're civil afterward.
Maybe.
Always. Yeah, everybody's fine.
No, I've seen coaches,
So I don't. So since some people sometimes get mad in these areas, you want to get rid of them, so nobody is ever nice to anybody. Is you're saying?
No, I don't think it's that big of a deal if we have them or not. We can get rid of them. We can
Apparently
not
it's a
get rid
big
of them.
enough deal for you to bring it up all the time.
No, I think it's fun arguing with you.
Jeez, because I'm normal. I don't get this. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
I'm normal because I think I'm taking crazy pills that if you don't if KU and K somehow KU and K-State shaking hands is good sportsmanship, but after a baseball game, that's not good sportsmanship because they don't acknowledge the other team. Why don't we do it in baseball then? If it's that big of a deal and we have to do it to show kids the sportsmanship and all that, why don't we do it in Major League Baseball? They should go and be required to shake hands.
I'm all for it. Let's go.
But we're perfectly fine. We never complain about baseball not doing it.
Traditions and all that stuff. I imagine if you have benches on the same side, you're right next to each other, so it's a proximity thing.
Yeah.
Right? And they do fight all the time in baseball. Can you imagine how nice baseball would be if they shook hands every game?
That's a good point. That is true.
Yeah. When somebody fights in basketball, oh my God. In hockey, like, look at this. It's part of the game right here.
Look, they're having a brawl. Look at that. That's a 5. That guy's going to sit out for 5 minutes now, not 5 games. That guy's out. Hold on. They're on the ice. Pick them up. Fight's over.
Baseball's the one sport where I want to shake the pitcher's hand. Hey, you're so great. I don't want him throwing a pill at my head, right? Like, hey, man, I really respect you. Huh?
Why don't they do it, though? They just shake each other's hands. They're good sportsmanships to their teammates. And
I don't know, maybe.
If you lose, you don't even shake your own team's hands. You just go back to the clubhouse and call it a day.
Yeah.
You don't even acknowledge your own teammates.
I feel like that happens plenty.
Only if you win.
Only if you
no,
win.
They don't even talk to each other in the clubhouse after a loss.
Nothing.
No, I've never seen one conversation in a losing clubhouse ever.
Did we have something in the segment we were going to get to?
We probably did.
This is worse than the hot-cold argument, the weather argument.
Well, you can be hot and cold about handshake lines. Would you rather have cold handshakes or really warm, embracing handshakes?
I would rather have handshakes in 90-degree weather than 20.
Would you rather be a handshake line? I can take it or leave handshake lines, whether it's in 10-degree weather or 90-degree weather. But I would prefer handshakes or no handshakes.
Hey, where would you like to skirt the salary cap? What do you think ever there's like 90? I would love 90-degree handshakes where they're talking about the loopholes in the salary cap.
No, that's what I would want. Yes, so when the salary cap is more real than sportsmanship being learned from handshake lines.
No, I disagree with that. Absolutely. I disagree.
You want Soren to come in and argue with me about handshake lines. I'll bring Soren in and argue with you about the salary
the same
cap.
guy, yeah.
No longer on your side, Mick. What happens now?
It's true.
I got Mick in my corner now.
Fighting over the parent.
Get up, you son of a...
I bet he's a hot weather guy, too, though. Is he?
No,
is he cold?
He's shorts and hoodie. I don't know. I think he's a nice weather guy.
Yeah.
As if everybody else is in a nice. I'm not really a hot weather or cold weather. I kind of like it 70, 75 to 80.
Room temp.
You know, room temp. I love the temperature when you walk outside and you don't even think about the temperature.
Yeah,
and that's the best temperature ever. Not like you guys that won at 110. Heat index. I don't get it. I don't understand that from you guys.
Right.
Should we get into another conversation?
Sure. Let's go.
We'll take a time out and we'll do that on the other side of the break. We're hanging out with Mick Schaefer. He's presented by Empower Payments. You can empower your kids by teaching them how to go through the handshake line and empower the flybys. Huh? Negative Ghostwriter. Pattern is full. Not with Mick Schaefer. More Zone. Next.
Hey folks, it's time to march into Greenlight and see all the new specials that are going to be springing up all month. You can go to greenlightdispensary.com and see all the amazing new specials, and then go to one of their 4 Casey area locations. That's
Empower Payments. Each and every time we have Mick Schaefer on the show with us, empowerpayments.com. All right, so we got to the bottom of handshakes. We really solved the world's issues there with handshakes. But in all seriousness, from last night's game, I felt that thing was more about KU than K-State. Just how KU played, the defense they played against K-State, shutting down Tyler Perry, and the fact that Tyler Perry, Kaluma, and Carter combined for fewer points than Nick Timberlake scored by himself. Mm-hmm. That's the recipe for a 22-point loss. Oh, and they ended up losing by 22 points, 90-68, right? Wasn't that the final?
90-68.
Yep. So, losing by a couple dozen points. And Jerome Tang did say after the game that the defense that they played on Tyler Perry was that was the difference. You see what Nick Timberlake, you see what Furphy did in Manhattan, and what the three guys that I just mentioned for K-State that combined for 58 of the 75 in Manhattan, and they had 15 last night. To me, it was more about KU and sort of taking the will from K-State early in the game. And sort of that defensive pressure that we see in Allen Fieldhouse. I don't know if it was the guys weren't playing hard. Jerome Tang would know that, right? He questioned his team's effort last night. I think they went in there and started off playing pretty hard. I mean, they had a 7-3 lead early.
I think a lot of times you think you're playing hard, your hardest, but you're not, right? There's always a level you don't realize it. I don't think there are hardly any guys that go into a game like
I don't have it tonight,
right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's the steps you take in preparation to get to that point, to when you are out there. I mean, you're giving it your all and your energy. So I always think there's guys, they always think they're playing hard. There's just those other levels they're just not getting to, and it's hard sometimes as an athlete to realize that. That's my theory on that.
No, I think it's probably true, and you can probably show it on video of like, all right, this is what you're doing here. And Jerome Tang said they weren't cutting off screens as hard as KU. They weren't sprinting down the floor as hard as KU was. I think they might have been early in the game because they were getting up and running, and there was a 5-minute stretch to where
when you're competitive, when you got the lead, whatever, you've got that adrenaline, momentum, and everything. Yeah. That makes you faster. That makes you work harder. That gives you more energy.
I think the difference in the game, and I know they ended up losing by 22, but it was a 5-minute stretch early from the 18-minute mark to the 13-minute mark. K-State was up 7-3, and over the next 5 minutes, Kaluma missed a free throw. Carter then comes down and misses an open three. Kaluma then missed a 6-footer in the lane that rolled around and came out. Carter missed a shot in the lane in which he forced it early in the shot clock. Kaluma then hit a three. Tyler Perry missed a wide open three from the corner. McNair missed a baseline jumper that was forced at the end of a shot clock. Ames had a quick transition where it was a wild shot that was blocked by Hunter Dickinson. McNair then grabbed a KJ Adams rebound and outlet it to Hunter Dickinson, who then got the bucket out of it. And then K-State called timeout. Then at a timeout, they had a disjointed offensive possession where Kaluma missed an NBA three that bounced so hard off the front iron that it was the outlet pass to DeJuan Harris, and they go down and they score a bucket and a layup. And it's at that point it was 17-12. Game's not over. You're only down by 5. But in that stretch of basketball, Kaluma, Perry, and Carter went 1 of 6 from the floor, 0 of 1 from the free throw line, and they were just getting suffocated. And if those shots are falling, if Tyler Perry hits the open three, if Cam Carter hits the open three, I think it's a different feeling at that point. Then Tyler Perry's maybe locked in. Cam Carter maybe is locked in a little bit more. Kaluma doesn't it. Like 10 of the 15 points they scored came in the first 8 minutes of the game. Yeah. I mean, they scored 5 minutes in the final 32.
Jankovic was on the floor, right? When they were starting the end of the bench, the seniors.
They scored 5 points in the final 32 minutes of that game last night, combined, those three guys. And I just think early on, you're missing those shots, and Kansas is in your grill, and they're starting to get out and run, and it's a little more difficult. And maybe that's what Jerome Tang's talking about, is the fight didn't stay. You know?
I mean, baseball players, even professional baseball players, it's hard for them not to take a bad at-bat out on the field with them, right? The best ones, okay, these are two separate things I'm doing, defense and offense. And so you can imagine with college kids and basketball, where the difference between an offensive and a defensive possession is like that, right? Yeah. It's a second or two. It's hard not to carry over the negative to the other side of the floor, and vice versa, right? When you're every time you hit a shot, right, you come back on defense, you're slapping the floor.
That's
You're
right,
ready
yes.
to go.
You're Duke.
Lower.
Come on.
You're never lower than when you've hit like 3 threes in a row. You're never lower on defense the next possession.
That's right. You're actually not even, your feet aren't touching the floor. Yeah. You are low in your stance, but you're floating all at the same time.
And just right there, I mean, what you illustrated is basketball. I mean, you can have all the athletes, you can coach them up however you want, but when you're hitting shots, I mean, you're tough to beat. When you're not hitting shots, it's tough to win. That's why I think, especially for this KU team, it is so much about defense and making sure those aren't open threes they're taking and making or missing, that you're getting guys outside of their spots and making them take tough shots in spots they're not used to taking shots from, to where that defense can turn immediately into offense, and you can take KJ Adams, who is just the freak show of an athlete, right, in transition, and let him go get points quickly off turnovers there, and then you get the ball back. And I mean, when you have half court possessions and you're playing good defense, you have a point guard and you have a big man for KU, and those are the two biggest things in the half court, and it's a difference maker there, to where if you can, win the battle of transition points and buckets, off turnovers. If you win that, I think KU has an advantage over, I think, any team. But they haven't been because of that, and because they let teams shoot like 50% from three-point range usually.
I mean, it's such a make or miss game. Like again, even in that stretch, if K-State hits the 3 shots that were Cam Carter's open 3 in rhythm and Tyler Perry's open 3 in rhythm, and Kaluma's shot in the lane where it rolled out and came. That's
this
8
been
points.
A theme though for K-State.
Oh, I know,
all season
for sure.
long. That we started the Nebraska game. What they scored like 10 in the second half or something like that. I don't know if it was even that much. That is, they've just had these long scoreless droughts.
Right. And that's 8 points. And then McNair, if you don't outlet it to Hunter Dickinson, there's 2 more points. All of a sudden, in that 5-minute stretch, you're actually leading 20-15. Yeah. Instead of trailing 17-12, and you feel like, oh my God, I can't hit a shot. He can't hit a shot. Who's actually going to be able to score right now? Because the crowd is on top of us, and oh bleep.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times the offense goes as your point guard goes, right? And I don't know if there's a streakier player in the conference than Tyler Perry, right? When he's on, he can't miss.
He's been amazing for 3 games in a row.
He had been, and then last night, I know, got injured a little bit.
Yeah.
But then I feel like maybe last year with Marquise Noel, he was much more of a producer. Okay, when his shot wasn't falling, okay, he's getting assists and everything, and they're much more of a consistent team.
Yeah, he could control sort of the pace and everything too. But yeah, I mean, last night they
also had Keontae Johnson too. I mean,
yeah,
it's a more talented team. Oh, and the guy that's playing for Memphis now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a little bit different with so we're hedging hard on Tyler Perry on the screens, and we're going to go over the screen, so we're going to double team. And if you're going to beat us with a drop down to McNair or Colbert or Gasson, okay.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, we're going to hedge hard and go over the screen. All right, well, I'm going to flip it over to Naquan Tomlin, who's stepping out behind three-point land. Well, now I'm not doing that anymore. So now am I going over the screen with Tyler Perry? Am I going under the screen? Am I hedging as hard and having that, roll end up happening? It's a different game. It's a different team. We know that. And I think the unfortunate part with this, and I talked about it with Ari Timken last Friday, is, it's one thing to lose a player like Naquan Tomlin. It's another thing to lose him late, because if Tomlin would have stayed in the draft, I think Jerome Tang would have gone out and found another transfer, somebody to come in to take that spot and not go in with this team with Kaluma and Perry and Carter. And there's Naquan Tomlin out there, and you got 3-4 guys that you feel like can go and score. You take Tomlin off of it, and not even for injury. If he just stayed in the draft, K-State's a different team,
right?
I think.
Right, absolutely. And I think, you're spot on. It's Jimmy's and Joe's, right? And so I think this K-State team is underachieving way less than KU is, right? You look at the guys they have, you look at the record, okay, it could be a little bit better, right? Some close games in regulation. They could have, should have won. But with KU, I look at this team like they should not have 6-7 conference losses and 8 total losses.
I think Bill Self said last night they were 3 games off. He said if they'd have played better in other games, they should have 4 losses.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think he was illustrating how tough the Big 12 is.
It's very tough, but I mean,
he's like, we should still have 4 losses.
Team's been very different on the road, and just some of these out of the nowhere losses against UCF
and BYU.
And BYU, those shouldn't sit well. And so, the issues you have with 3-point defending with depth, with being able to play on the road. Those are the three big ones that the KU hasn't really figured out yet.
I want to play these clips. This is from the Dynasty series on Apple TV. And
about the Chiefs, their Chiefs dynasty?
That's right, the current dynasty. It's about the Patriots, oddly enough.
They have one.
They, for the first time, this is crazy, they've actually, somewhere outside of a podcast called Gladiator that detailed Aaron Hernandez's life, people actually brought up the fact that Aaron Hernandez asked Bill Belichick to be traded. Bill Belichick said, no, we're not going to trade you, dude, even though you feel like your wife and your life and your kids' life is in danger. But I want to play these 3 clips. It's about Aaron Hernandez. This is, and I think it's sort of, shows a little bit of the coaching aspect of the player versus what it means elsewhere outside of just strictly, specifically one-track mind of the team and what does this do for the team. Here's Jonathan Kraft when Aaron Hernandez was being walked out of his house in handcuffs, being charged with first-degree murder. Here's Jonathan Kraft, Robert Kraft's son, who is one of the higher-ups there with the New England Patriots.
Aaron was being led out of his house in handcuffs, and it was on television everywhere. And I just remember thinking, whatever warm feelings we might have towards Aaron, it looks like he's done the ultimate bad thing, and we can't have him on our team any longer. At that time, my dad and Bill were both out of the country, but I felt strongly we couldn't wait. And so I called my dad, and he very much agreed, and we called Bill. And, Bill, as is his wont, was always more measured. In the beginning, he said, he's not guilty yet. And there were competitive issues, too. He didn't want to have to lose an amazing football player. So Bill's instinct would be, play this thing out till the end. And I just knew we couldn't play it out to the end. And not because of how it looked on us, but because we had to set a example. I mean, it's like this guy's a murderer.
I think Robert Kraft was trying to be as measured in that, even though he was saying Bill Belichick was taking a more measured approach of this guy's not guilty, and saying there were competitive issues, and he took more of a measured approach. I think Robert Kraft would be like, what the bleep are you talking about? This guy murdered somebody. We're not going to let this thing play out, okay? They've been to his house. They know it's him. They've got the gun. They've got his, destroying surveillance video. We're cutting him. Bill Belichick's like, no, hold on. You understand the 2 tight end set we run.
Right. Well, that doesn't surprise me at all. First of all, a guy who's probably never been on social media, and another guy that's just, just black and white of like, okay, this guy, he's not behind bars, right? But he's still a citizen. He's still allowed to, contribute to society. Why can't he contribute to our team?
Is this not America anymore?
Yeah, no. The trial's not for a year or so. I mean, what? I mean, he should be allowed to work and make money for his family and all that.
Can we get a work release for him on Sundays at least?
Yeah.
And Mondays and Thursdays if need be, and sometimes Saturdays we can get a work release. Here's the story about Aaron Hernandez at the draft asking Bill Belichick to trade him because he felt like his life was in danger and he wanted to get away from the Boston area.
Aaron's paranoia is increasing, his drug use is increasing. He asked to meet with Bill Belichick. Aaron told him that his girlfriend and his daughter's safety was in jeopardy. Belichick asked Hernandez if he wanted help from the security department of the Patriots, and Hernandez said, no, thank you. Instead, he asked Bill Belichick to trade him to a team on the West Coast so he'd get away from New England, just get away. But Belichick said no to Aaron Hernandez.
At the 2013 Combine, Aaron Hernandez asked to be traded to a West Coast team, saying that he feared for his family's lives. What did you do with that information?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation about Aaron, and I don't have anything to add to it.
Bill Belichick has never fully explained why he didn't trade Aaron Hernandez, but it was probably because the team had just invested all this money in him because he was still a great player.
Aaron was obviously a very talented player. He got a big contract, which in retrospect, no, we shouldn't have done that. Probably the best thing for Aaron Hernandez's pro football career and his life might have been to go to the Seattle Seahawks. Not be within a 2-hour drive of the people he grew up with from his hometown of Bristol. Someone got killed. A young person lost his life because of Aaron Hernandez.
That was Ernie Adams, who works very closely with Bill Belichick and the Patriots organization. Ernie Adams, retrospect, we should have traded him. We should have got him. Bill Belichick, unfortunate. I don't have anything else to say.
Well, I mean,
about
I'm more on the coaches Belichick side on that one. In that, first of all, it somebody else's life was in danger because Aaron Hernandez murdered multiple people, and he left New England for college, and is still a person of interest in 2 shootings down there in Florida, a long way from New England as well. So sorry if I don't believe that he goes to Seattle, he's going to be a model citizen, and it's not going to follow.
I agree with that part. I just think it's interesting, sort of the juxtaposition of Bill Belichick's right-hand man of in retrospect, we shouldn't have given him the money and trading
and if
him.
that gets out, and all I got to do is just say my family's in danger, and I can get traded to the Cowboys.
Yeah, and Belichick's just stone cold. It's unfortunate.
But he did. He did offer help and security.
Right? Aaron Hernandez no, I don't want them watching me.
Yeah, exactly.
Then they're watching me do stuff. That's terrible, Bill. Now I can't go and live my life. What do I look like here? Somebody who wants to be a model citizen? Yeah. No, send me to the West Coast so I can start it all over. Fresh start with my, crime spree.
Right.
That'd be great. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back and wrap things up with Mick Schaefer, presented by Empower Payments. He's from KSHB 41. More Zone next. All right, hanging out here on this Wednesday edition of The Zone. Jason Anderson with you, Dylan Michaels, heading up until 2 o'clock. We're hanging out with Mick Schaefer, presented by Empower Payments, boosting your business and charity with every transaction. Learn more at empowerpayments.com. That was a chug and a spike, wasn't it?
It was. I'm done with my water.
That was a spike chug.
Spike chug.
Yeah, you didn't slam the two waters together and then drink them and then
I drank my one bottle of Casey's water. I am good for the week, I think. Isn't that what they say? About 20 ounces per week?
Yeah,
that's what they say.
My wife walks around with one of those oversized Stanley cups.
Big dumb cup.
Yeah, no, she actually drinks out of the Stanley Cup. She has more Stanley Cups than the Maple Leafs, which is crazy, you know?
My wife just has a regular Tervis, but with a picture of Stanley from The Office on it. That's her Stanley Cup.
She actually got it from Stanley from The Office, which is great. Oh, man, we should have played the clip. We'll do it on Friday. Remind me, on Friday.
They'll be back.
From... well, I won't be here on Friday.
Where are you going to
be? None of your business, okay?
Okay, cool.
And I'll thank you to stay out of my personal life.
I'll skip too then.
Yeah. You know what? You should. Sterling's in, so...
Oh, good. Okay.
But no, Brian
time for a shower afterward if I do come in.
Brian Baumgartner was talking about the fantasy league.
Kevin.
Yeah, that's right.
From the office.
The fantasy league of people at the office. They're still in it.
Yeah,
and he said
that's really cool.
They used to draft by a notepad, like this yellow notepad, and they would just write it down, and then you would hand it to the next person. And he goes, and there's sometimes it would be in the middle of filming. You would look at a desk, and our fantasy football draft notepad would be on somebody's
That's
desk.
pretty good.
In the background. Like, man, I want to zoom in and see, like, you took Larry Fitzgerald that early? My God. You took a defense in the third round?
Who's drafting a kicker? Honestly, the fifth round?
We both went the same route. Defenses and kickers. Thank you, Mick. I appreciate it.
Hey, anytime except for Tuesdays and Thursdays and maybe this Friday.
Hey, good game.
Hey, good. Thank you.
Shake
See? This is better. I hated you until that flyby right there. Hated you.